We're live. All right. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 2nd Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. It's just past 7 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order and get into it. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have public input, but before public input, we do have a remote participant tonight. So similar to past meetings, the committee has to vote to allow for remote participation and voting this evening.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Discussion? Roll call vote for the duration of the evening. We'll start with Mr. Sun.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I am an aye. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Yeah, Farka. All right, so that passes 8-0-0. Mr. Hayes, if you can hear us, hopefully you can. Just please advise why you're remote tonight and if there's anyone joining you in your room.
Yes, continued concerns about COVID-19 and its variants, and there is nobody else joining me.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. All right, next up on the agenda is public input. Hearing and seeing no one from public input, we will close public input. There's a second round at the conclusion of tonight's meeting. Any changes or additions, modifications to tonight's agenda? Nope, hearing none. Next up is correspondence. I did circulate a few. There was actually not too much correspondence over the past couple of weeks with the Thanksgiving holiday. I did circulate my summary to Matthew Sullivan, our minute taker, so he has it, and I'll just read it into the minutes. We have our town budget reports that were circulated on the 19th and the 24th of November. On the 19th of November, we did receive an email from the Conservation Commission Chairman, Mr. Lepore, on the use of the Conservation Fund that was forwarded to the Budget Committee. On November 21st, minutes from November 18th were received, which were forwarded to the committee on the 23rd. On November 28th, Mr. Leary had submitted a request, which was forwarded to the school board and the superintendent for response on itemized salary for all employees for the last 3 years. On the 29th, we did receive a response, and our understanding is that there is no report to have for a 3-year comparison of salaries. And certainly food service and custodial increases will be explained this evening. So we'll get into that here shortly. On the 29th, I did receive an email from Ms. Stevens, which we can talk about either later or up in front if the committee so chooses. Ms. Stevens had sent an email on subbing at GMS and just wanted to make sure she was avoiding any conflicts with voting in the budgets themselves. On November 29th, we had an email that was circulated to the committee from Mrs. Donna Ferguson, the library trustees, just on a desire to be more included and more involved on town planning and activities, which was great. And then on December 1st, Mr. Hayes sent me an email on remote participation for this evening. Any other correspondence any other committee members had that I missed? Okay, hearing none. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Stevens. Did you want to address it now before voting?
Sure. Mrs. Clinton-Jones is dying for subs at GMS, as you guys know. So I have a couple hours during the week that I might be able to do that. But I wanted to make sure, I wanted to bring it up here to see how you guys felt, if you felt that that would be a conflict of interest.
Nope. For my side, thank you for your willingness to help. I know they're short-staffed and we're appreciative of that.
No problem.
Okay. All right, then
Thank
she'll
you.
see my application in a couple of days.
Thank you.
Along those same lines, if for anyone that doesn't know, my wife is a para at the high school. Just again, full transparency. Like, there's nothing in the budget that's going to benefit her. There's no raises in there, but just full transparency. Obviously, when it comes to vote on the warrant for raises, I'll abstain from that. But I think the budget should be fine.
And I'll go ahead and say, because it was brought up last year, my company is utilized by the district. However, last year that was a line item that was in the district budget because local funds were used, and I abstained. That's no longer paid for by local dollars, so it should not impact that vote. It's paid for at the state level.
Gotta love small town, right? That's the way it works. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, cool. Anything else to address there? All right. So we do have our review and acceptance of minutes from November 18th, which were circulated to the committee. Did anybody have any edits or changes to those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sun. Further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Aye.
I am a yes. For this?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Stevens. Mr. Barca.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
I am a yes.
All right, 900, that passes. And the objective of tonight is to vote on the school budgets. At our last meeting on the 18th, we were presented with all of the individual sections of the budget, starting with CHS. The committee had asked several questions as a result of that budget process. I know there was a working document which there had some answers responded to. I figured maybe it makes sense just to get an update and start with those Q&As before we get into the voting.
So the document we prepared last time, we've got several questions that were asked. I think totals up to 18 or 15 different questions, and we have provided those answers. Corey and I worked on them a little bit today, just to make sure they were as clear as could be, because we had several people kind of editing and hopping in. So I guess I would just pause and see if there are questions from the answers that we provided, fully understanding you may not have had a full opportunity to read them yet. I'm also willing to walk through them, but I don't want to waste anybody's time if you're good.
My concern is more of a logistics thing. This makes me uncomfortable, honestly, because when we have Facebook pages and in the past we've had bulletin boards, and don't go over the quorum amount because it becomes an unofficial meeting. And so without this being in the minutes and the normal correspondence, this makes me very uncomfortable.
Why
It's
can't
not a
we-
discussion,
So-
so quorum.
Why can't we put it in the minutes?
They'll put it in the minutes, but the process is just because we've had our hands slapped in the past, but like, don't everybody chime in on an email, don't everybody chime in on a Facebook post because it becomes an informal, illegal meeting.
I think
So
they were the ones that were commenting on it, right? It was the
Just-
school district people.
But
so
if we put comments in it, then you've become a participant in the
Which I don't
conversation.
think we did.
Yeah.
So to me, it just
In
It
any
makes me
event, there's 15 questions.
perfect.
I don't think there's any issues with circulating
Putting it
this to
in
the
the
minute
yep.
taker and getting them in the minutes.
Yeah, we
fine.
provided all the answers with some input from the rest of the admin team, but really is the school answering the questions that we were asked.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to elaborate, or if you feel something's not answered or a further question, we'll take them.
did have one, just the question that I had raised it. It's number 10, which was the CHS library computers. It seemed like the answer, and this again, maybe something Jason has to provide more information about, really stemmed around the fact that they're there because students can't print at CHS and they can't print on their Chromebooks. Do we know why they can't print on their Chromebooks, the school printers?
That I'm not sure of, but there's more to it than just the printing piece of it. There's softwares that the students use that are you're only able to use it on PC level. Then they're not compatible apps with the.
They're not web-based. They're something that's installed, I assume.
I also think, I'm going to venture a guess, and that is that if we had 400 Chromebooks that could print at the push of a button, we would, be asking you to quadruple our paper budget versus this slows it down, right? So we're trying to be as electronic. We're trying to utilize, upload your paper in the Google Classroom electronically, et cetera. So I think it's been disabled just because, it's too
trying
easy
to
to
minimize.
print.
Volume.
Minimum
Easy to print.
Yep.
Okay.
I know there were some questions on the water bill.
I saw the response on that. I don't know if there was a response on the, that I had asked about because I was reading the minutes too, about how many we funded for resignations and retirements last year. It didn't make it into here, versus how many were actually paid out. Because that excess gets rolled into the general fund, and now we're going to be taxing people again for the same retirement that was
Sorry,
notified last year.
What was the question?
So my question last week, and it was noted in the minutes, was that how many retirement notifications did we receive and budget for in the last year's budget that did not get expended?
That'll take me a few minutes to research. Yeah, it's
I do
actually,
have the information.
it's a
Because
memo
I could figure
somewhere.
out 2020 because I have a multitude of binders, but I could not figure out this year's.
Okay. Well, let's give them an opportunity to take a look at that. Were there any other questions
So this,
response to
this
the Q&A doc.
spreadsheet should answer the question. I can give you a link so that you have it. This is
Hopefully attrition.
the attrition information. So, but it doesn't address the budget
But
question.
my
on it.
concern is realistically, from a taxpayer perspective, if we have, say, 4 notifications of retirement and then 3 retire, well, but we are still on the hook for the 4th person. And then they notify again the following year. Well, now they're included again in the budget. So you're essentially asking for the contribution from the taxpayers twice because we don't return that money because it goes into the general fund as part of your end of year fund balance. So,
So we
just
double
trying
counting.
so in my opinion, like we need to develop an algorithm. If we know that we're going to receive 10 notifications and 9 are going to be implemented, then do we budget the full 100%? If that's a standard thing that we know that, just being more precise in our accounting.
I don't think it's that easy, honestly.
No, the easy part would be returning the money and then billing it again the next year, but we don't do that. So how do we do it? How do we capture that?
Well, so honestly, Carrie, you're absolutely right that becomes fund balance at the end of the year. And then the school board uses it as spend ahead, which is really an avoidance of some other project to come down the road. So it's not like, yes, you're right. The money's already been taxed and raised, but then the board uses it to get after projects that were in the budget coming up anyway. So in the long run, it's utilized to take care of district needs.
And I'm glad that you're comfortable with that answer. I don't like the idea of taxing people twice for the same retirement. Personally.
What's the probability though does that happen a lot?
So in 2020, the line item for salaries in this area was budgeted at 146,390, and we expended 80,000. So if you do that, I mean,
It's 2 or
there's
3 individuals.
so there are years when like 2021 was very close, but 2020 clearly not.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't honestly go back to 2014, which I could have done because I did that for special ed, but it's a matter of, well, what is the number? What is the right number to carry? Should we be carrying 100%?
So here's the way it works. We don't pull a number out of thin air. What we do is the collective bargaining agreement says that if you intend to retire that year, you need to give notice to the district by November 1st. If we have 11 people this year who gave us notice, we budgeted for 11 because 11 people had said, I intend to retire this year. If only 10 retire, we still have budgeted for 11. But if we budget for some other, let's only do 85% of what's requested, and we actually have 100% of the people go, which has happened many of the years, then we would be under budget in that and taken from somewhere else. So that's the challenge. We have attempted to bargain language that will be more clear that when you put that in, it's because you really are intending to retire. Now, things happen, don't get me wrong, but it's not I think I'll just see what happens this year and then I'll try again next year and I'll try the year after. So we are having those conversations to try to get to the practical budget impact of this and to make sure that number is as tight as can be. Right now, I believe there's 11 in this year because 9?
9 and 1 carryover.
Right.
Right.
So my question essentially is, well, of those 9, how many have I already paid for as a taxpayer? That's because
Sounds like
What do
one
you mean by
carryover.
that?
yeah.
What's that?
It sounds like one carryover, right?
No, the one carryover was the one that was notified in this past summer that didn't make last year's budget.
Correct. But what do you mean by
So,
you already paid for it?
What I'm saying, as a taxpayer, if I'm looking at this budget, I say, there's 11 here, but then only 9 retire, and the school board takes the money and allocates it for Chromebooks for some classroom that wasn't originally in the budget because that's what happened. But then next year, those 2 of those people of the next, say, 7 have already been taxed for. And as a taxpayer, I'm like, well, I already paid that person's retirement. Now you're asking for it again. So for me,
But I'm not asking for Chromebooks.
but a lot of the things that you use assigned fund balance are kind of questionable anyway.
Well,
So-
let's keep it on point. Let's keep it on
So,
point.
but I'm
all
saying
right?
we may not agree. Like, the foundation for stadium seating, like there are projects that get used for end of year fund balance. They never get vetted by the voter. Let's be honest. They never do. Some of them just don't.
So where does the money go?
So it goes to end of year fund. So the reality is the way I would do it if it were my budget is that money would be like, this is an expense that I did not incur. I include that as part of the money that I return and then re-tax the voters next year. That's how I would do it. but that's not how we do it. So it's, as a taxpayer, you could be paying for the same person's retirement 3-4 years in a row because every year they notify you that they're retiring and then don't. So how do
People
we
have the
tighten
right
that
to
up?
change their mind.
And
I don't know how you can account for that.
I just told you how I would account for it.
Well, you're also not a governmental accountant. So I'm going to stop right now because right now what it comes down to is we have a bottom line budget with a school board that has the authority to spend. The dollar amount that's approved in March is a bottom line budget.
So what we're trying to figure out is
So
what that number
special
should be.
services is part of the general fund. If we have a deficit in the general fund and I have surplus in special ed, I can move that to the general fund.
That's a
Just
new
as when
thing. That's a new
Yes-
thing, yes.
No, that's not a new thing.
Yep, it is absolutely.
That's not a new thing. I've been a governmental accountant for 15 years.
All right, that's
Not
a new thing in this town.
So if I have a deficit in special ed,
Mhm.
I can move money from the general fund into special ed. I don't ask for more money for it. If I have a deficit in special ed,
Mhm.
I'm not going to put out a supplemental tax bill. I'm going to use the bottom line budget that was approved by the voters.
Yes, and we've done that for the past 25 years, and we've never had to go for a supplemental budget. But and we've always had an agreement up until I don't really honestly care how other schools do it. In this town, there's always been that agreement, which no longer exists. I get it, and so that is how I'm factoring in my budgeting is that that agreement does no longer exist. But yes, we agree on a bottom line number. The question is, what should that number be? What numbers are in this budget that maybe don't need to be? And that's where I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to calculate the appropriate number for each line item. Because just because somebody says they're going to do something doesn't mean it's going to be. And then we underspend by 1.3 million. So do I want to go to my neighbors? Last year's underspend was significant.
Yeah.
In
And we
the middle
used
of
it
a
and we
pandemic.
in the middle of a
Yeah.
pandemic and we used it to do projects.
So,
So
I want to
the
make
question
sure
is,
we're
how do we
keeping-
tighten up those
But
numbers?
I want to make sure we're keeping it to the question.
So
Right.
and the question is there is no ability to do that. So what is the appropriate algorithm?
Well, I think the appropriate algorithm is they're budgeting based upon what they know, and if you don't like that, or if the committee doesn't like
That-
that, you can make a motion to
Exactly.
make a percentage reduction.
I'm just trying to see if there was a history so we can look back and say over the last 5 years 92% of the people who said they're going to retire did. All right, 8% reduction, pretty easy. 92% is pretty good. But we don't have that. So you're right. I'll have to come up with some number that I'm comfortable with.
Okay, next. I mean, we're not going to solve that right now.
No,
So,
no, we're not. We're not.
any other thoughts on
I-
that?
Just to be clear, there is a letter of intent behind everything in the budget. It is not a number we pull out of thin air. Personnel has a letter of intent from a person, and that's what the budget number was based on, just to be clear.
I think last year was a fluke year, and you can't really base a lot off of last year.
I
personally.
agree, because you have
Yeah.
people with
can't,
situations
'cause
that, under COVID and whatever. they change their
Budgeted for
mind.
7 retirements. I think we paid 1 or 2 of them. And that's in my thought process, that's because some people that had put their retirement in were hoping to have one more normal year before they left.
That's
I have
exactly
no
what it was.
problem with that.
And I don't have a problem with that either. And as I said, though, as from the person, neighbors paying this tax bill, like, but I've already paid for that. Why didn't I get the money back since the expense didn't hit? So that's where we're disconnecting. And that's fine because we have different philosophies on how it should be done.
It's a
But
difference
Carrie,
of
just to-
opinion, and that's
again,
fine.
to point out, if you look at the buildings and grounds budget, I think you were pleased by the reduction in that budget because we got projects accomplished last year with the spend ahead. So we're not asking for money in this year's budget. We're not going to ask for
See,
taxes
that's where we
there.
disagree, though. I don't mind asking taxpayers for and seeing it in the budget for maintenance issues. I actually have a problem with hiding maintenance. In my opinion, is papering it over. You get credit for the work that in the maintenance we're doing on the building. You don't get credit for the wonderful work that gets done because it gets hidden. I'd like to see it. Just, you know what? We need to do this at GMS. We need to do this at CHS. It's in the budget.
Actually, if you go back to last year, there was a list of projects that were pulled out of the budget to be addressed by unreserved funds. So those were completely transparent and
Okay.
available
And
And
given
it's
the
a
budget
difference
and
in
given to the
philosophy.
budget committee.
The difference in philosophy, and I'm sure I complained then too. So it's just a difference in philosophy.
All right, any other questions on the Q&A document?
We are going to talk about the janitors and the other stuff you said later, right? Or is that here?
Well, so
here.
let me, if you go to question number
No, I see it, but it was
15.
discussed that we were going to discuss it later. I just wasn't sure if later was now or later was
Later is now when we're
Okay.
going through the question.
Gotcha. All right.
So question number 15 answers the question. So that the question we were asked was specific to food service, but I want to draw your attention to custodial because it's the same answer to both classes of employee. And basically what it came down to was our inability to hire staff this year because our wages were not competitive in the marketplace. You'll notice that our custodian starting pay was $13.81 an hour. Food service starting pay was $10.27. Anybody who's driven by a McDonald's or a Dunkin' Donuts knows they're starting at $15 an hour. So why would you work at food service at the school for 10 something, 10.27, when you can get a job at your local Dunks for 15? We were at a deficit. Yes, you can argue these are, so-called mom's hours in terms of school year, et cetera. That only goes so far when you're comparing 10 to 15, right? So we, during the summer, we started June cleaning with 2.5 unfilled custodian positions. By August, we had 5.5 open positions in custodial. So that's a 43% vacancy rate in our staff cleaning the buildings. We had to take action. In food service, we had 4 open positions in August, and that's more than one per school. And we were very worried about our ability to serve lunches on the first day of school with the number of vacancies. So what the board did is they said, look, by not having these people, we have unused wages in those lines. We're going to utilize the unused wages from July and August to increase the wages. And because it's a bottom line budget, we're able to make that adjustment. So the new custodial starting pay is $15.12 an hour, and the new food service starting pay is $12.27.
What about existing?
That impacted. So then everybody existing, those, I didn't give you the whole wage scale. I just said, we increased the starting, and then that of course bumped right through the salary schedule. So we had to attract new people and retain existing people. So that was the ripple effect that we implemented.
How do these numbers compare to whatever the new, because support staff already has a contract.
Support staff has a negotiated agreement.
How do these numbers compare to that?
That will be coming forward. Those were all factored into the new agreement. So that going forward, that's what will be there.
Are those vacancy rates down?
They are. I believe I signed the last custodial one today, the halftime position. So we're back to fully staffed. Food service has been fully staffed when we opened, and
They're working with 2 subs right now and down 1 lead. But
So does that mean that line item is going to overspend now that the salary rates have been, or the hourly rates have increased?
because of not having people in those positions and wages just sitting there not being paid, they're now being used. So no, it should not be an overspend. I say should.
It just makes me uncomfortable. Like I appreciate the situation you guys found yourselves in, but what happens if we find ourselves short we're short teachers? What's to stop us from saying, well, we're going to renegotiate or we're going to readjust all the salaries without voter input? To me, it's just
That's different because of the way their contract's set up, right? You can't do
they're
that.
both contracts. They're both contracts.
Negotiated contracts. Yeah.
The custodial service and food service are covered by the LSSA contract. So if we can do that with one contract, no matter how good the intentions, what does that do for future
That
contracts?
addressed in letter F on your question there.
I think it is.
And I think you have to scale it. A line within a custodial budget is not equivalent to a teaching line. So you have to look at the scale impact of.
So do we
making
have
an
a
adjustment.
legal opinion that supports F?
Absolutely. We consulted with our attorney. Our attorney advised us on the steps. He advised us on the case law and said this is a strategy to address the hiring deficiencies that you have.
Was there any consideration, and let me just preface it by saying clearly, there were, from what I heard, very little complaints about the cleanliness of the buildings. And that's a testament to the people that were a part of the short staff. Was it also considered that maybe paying more but having less headcount? Because, obviously you don't want to burn people out, but if you're paying somebody that is higher quality, and clearly the people that are on staff during this deficit showed that they were worth extra money and could actually go ahead and do the work of that plus part of a open headcount. Was there a consideration around reducing the overall headcount and paying this higher rate or even a higher rate for better quality instead of going with quantity?
I wouldn't reduce the level of staffing at any of the three buildings. In the grand scheme of things, there's 4 full-time custodians at CHS. CHS is a big building.
Mhm.
And one of the individuals who is highly, highly qualified, he's very, very good, but we were burning him out with overtime. So if you're not paying it to another individual, you're paying it overtime.
And I'm not saying you keep going at the level that
Yeah.
you're going at, but I feel like that there's probably some sort of balance in there that says, you know what, if you have 3 people at CHS that perform at that higher level, like these people showed that they could do, you pay them at the higher rate, and you don't have to worry about having the 4th person because you know what, the 3 people do the job of what historically we did with 4 lower paid people. I feel like you get better employee satisfaction, and clearly we saw that, you can't continue to run the way that we did, but that does show that there is some area there where, you could tighten the belt and improve the livelihood of those that are performing exceptionally well.
I think just you're in an environment with a collective bargaining agreement.
Well, I think another
And the
key-
applicants, there were no applicants coming.
Another key thing is, the staffing levels are actually established using standards for the industry. So I can't remember the standard that we apply, but they'll have like a standard 1 cleanliness, 2 cleanliness, 3. It's all done by square footage, bathroom fixtures, blah, blah, blah. So we actually are staffed at the right level. It's not too heavy. We're not going for the hospital grade cleanliness. It's a school. And so we've done that analysis. We ended up adding 1 staff member at CHS a couple of years ago, and it was because we were way under with the numbers. And so in order to achieve the right cleanliness level. So,
But not only did you have like in the short staff and you had the custodians doing their job, and I agree they've done a great job through everything, but we also had paras stepping up to help out. We had teachers stepping up to help out, just doing the small things for an hour after school just to help these guys out. So we're also paying them. So you need the bodies to get through those buildings and keep them. I think.
Again, let's try to keep it short.
Yep.
You answered my question. Was it explored? No. You guys have an algorithm as far as how many people you need based on square footage. We can end the conversation.
yeah, well, but I think Corey's point is really valid, which is that we had paraprofessionals who would stay after and
Yes.
they worked an extra hour,
Correct.
and their task was just go around and take the dump out in every room, right? So bag it, put a new bag in, get it outside. That means it's 1 less touch for the custodians. Those are at the high school a month ago when we were in a pinch. We asked the teachers, bag your dump, put it outside the door. If everybody just bags their dump and puts it outside the door, you're going to save a significant amount of time that we don't have right now. And most teachers complied. I did it. You did it. We all just sort of pitched in. It's like, this is what we got to do right now. So we were doing everything we could in the middle of the situation. We're actually grateful to be back to the level that we need.
We do have there's also a floating sub as well that's helping out at the buildings when we need her. So it's a challenge. And these guys, the amount of hours they were putting in while we were short staffed, I don't wish that on anybody.
Mm-mm.
All right, any other questions?
The points that I would make is that if I was a member of the support staff, you gave custodians a raise, you gave food service a raise, and I believe you said before that you increased paras hours. But if I'm not one of those groups, I'm a little PO'd right now because everybody else is getting more and I'm not. And the other point would be that on the raises, I know for years, and you had spoken last year when you did the tech ed positions, that the admins were trying to get 40 hours across the board. And last year or the year before, I believe it was Mr. Bork said that that would be like giving yourself a second raise and vetoed it. So now you're doing 2 raises. How do you explain that to the taxpayers?
I honestly don't understand the question, but I heard 2.
The
So
admins wanted to get 40 hours across the board,
Which
but they were
admins?
working 7.5 hours a day. Like now
the
you've bumped
administrators?
admin assistants.
Oh, admin assistants, right.
You did that. You bumped it up last year to a 40-hour position. However, in the past, when they were trying to get that done, the school board saying that would be like giving yourself 2 raises in the same year. And you're not doing it. Here, you're giving 2 raises in the same year. And the other part was that if I'm a member of the support staff that's not getting this extra money, I'm a little.
So we've responded to the sections of the budget where positions were vacant. Those were the wages that were not competitive. Administrative assistants,
But you're doing 2 raises. You're doing the negotiated raise and you're doing this raise. That's 2 raises.
for this year.
They're going to get a raise. They got
They get a step
3%
in
raise
July.
plus they're
Yeah.
getting this. So they're
Right.
getting 3% plus this. That's 2 raises.
That's correct.
How do you explain that to the taxpayers?
Because we didn't have anybody in those positions, Bob. So
You know
we-
they're not going to buy it, right?
But
I think they,
taxpayers aren't funding those.
The taxpayers fund everything in this town that a dollar gets spent
Can I
on.
explain? Because the funds were not being spent because of the vacancies,
Mm-hmm.
the money from those vacancies is funding the increase for custodians.
I-
To address a
But that-
critical
that
shortage.
rules-
The reality though is,
I completely
already
understand what
funded.
you're
We weren't
saying,
asking
and we
for
ran
more.
into this at the town level with the people at the dump. We gave them a raise, but that was their raise. They didn't get 2. They got 1.
but the vacant positions
We had vacant positions.
don't get a raise. So in other words, it's not a person.
I think
Right.
that the other concern
And-
is if you went 2 months without pay, okay, you allocate that across. Next year you have 12 months at the higher rate. So you've already busted that line item.
That's correct. But
So-
the bottom line is we had nobody in there.
I'm not saying right or wrong.
A 43% vacancy rate in custodians. Do you know what kind of outcry we would have? We're in the middle of a pandemic still. We have cleanliness that we need to maintain, right? So now all of a sudden, we're not able to clean bathrooms because we don't have anybody in those positions. So I'm sorry, the board took the action that was necessary to maintain health and safety standards in the schools. And that does cost money. It's unfortunate that this is the market that we're in, but it's the reality of it. We're not making these numbers up. This is what we were
We're
facing.
not saying that. We're just saying it's 2 raises. It's 2 raises in the same year.
Correct, to bring it up to market conditions, Bob. If you own a company
Mhm.
and you're paying your employees, and if you can't get somebody in there, you're going to increase the wages in order to attract people into the position. That's what we had to do.
It was approved by the board. It was approved by the union. So,
It's not approved by the union.
well,
The
they
union,
waived the right to negotiate on it in
That
order
is
for us
correct.
to be able to do it.
So
not
my
the
my concern is how the size of that contract's going to look like on the ballot, because now you have to fund 2 extra months and a raise. So it's something you guys are going to have to deal with when you put it forward. It is what it is. That's a choice you guys made. That's something you guys will have to put before the voters.
But that's not for tonight.
No, that's
That's
just
a good question. I guess legally, if the new contract fails, do you have to fall back to the old contract's rates, or can you unilaterally raise them like this?
so according to legal,
Yeah.
there's case law about status quo, that once that wage has been offered, it becomes a new status quo and we are obligated to meet it. So it will be, the budget numbers already include that new number.
See, it just makes me even
That's the
more
new
uncomfortable
status
with
quo.
the decision. Like, again, it's not that I don't appreciate the situation you found yourself in. My concern is the precedent. My concern is 3 years from now when we're not in this situation, well, we did it before.
Hopefully we won't be in a pandemic situation and a hiring shortage where we can actually fill our positions.
I'm not projecting where we're
schools.
going to be again, and we're just establishing a precedent that makes me uncomfortable. I'm just,
All right,
That
I
is what
think
it
we've
is.
made all the points for this one. Are we ready to proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so moving into the order of business for this evening, we have 4, 8, 12, 13, 14 budget sections that were presented last week or 2 weeks ago, excuse me. and we're going to go through each one of those sections. We will start in the same order as presented. So we will start with CHS and kind of work through the sections accordingly. I will announce the bottom line of that budget. And if there are motions that the committee members would like to make, by all means, we can do that and have that debate at that time. Sound like a plan? All right. So starting off with Campbell High School, we have a bottom line on Campbell of $570,685. Were there any motions or reductions to this budget the committee members would like to make?
I have a motion
Mr. Taylor.
on, hole punch ended up punching out the page. CHS Physical Education, line item 430, repairs and maintenance. I'd like to make a motion to reduce that from 1,300 to 0.
1,300 to
Sorry,
0.
what page?
What page was that?
The whole punch has gone through it. I think it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bottom of 4.
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Sorry, could you repeat that again, please? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Line number under CHS Physical Education, line 430, repairs and maintenance.
Bottom of
Reduce
page
that from 1,300 to 0.
Is that the one they said those bleachers too, though, or is it just because the ropes course?
According to this, it's just the ropes course. Later on in the phys ed, there's maintenance for those other items.
Oh, that was the 460 for 2,400, right? Okay.
Okay. So discussion.
Discussion on that?
So I guess your idea behind it is we just wouldn't have the ropes course anymore?
Correct.
We've had this debate before.
Yep.
Actively used as the ropes course.
I think he had said it's used. There's one class that uses it like every day.
Yeah.
Well, so last night, Mr. Knight and Ms. Zepan presented to the school board, and they explained that the Fit for Life course utilizes it pretty heavily. I think it also includes, see if I'm right on this, it's not just the ropes course, but also the climbing wall inside the rock wall and inside the gym.
I thought the rock wall inspection is later on in the phys ed.
You could be right.
Okay.
You could be right.
And I think during the questions that are posted on the Google Doc, it calls that out. So,
So let's assume for a second this is the outside ropes course. So, but the Fit for Life class does go out and utilize it. And also the freshman seminar is another example that uses that as part of their activities. So those are the two main uses of the ropes course.
And assuming if we stop inspecting it, we can't just abandon it. Wouldn't we have to like take it down or something, I would think?
Yeah, that was my question. Could it be used without the annual inspection?
Nope. I would not do that. Would you?
Just wanted to put it out there.
All right, motion second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. We're going to start with you, Mr. Sun.
No.
No. Okay. Ms. Harrison?
No.
No. Mr. Leary?
No.
I'm a no on this one. Ms. Douglas?
No.
No. Mr. Taylor?
yes.
Yes. Okay.
No.
Ms. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Barca? And Mr. Hayes?
No.
All right, this one fails 180. Any other motions or reductions on the CHS budget?
I have another one on, sorry, again, the whole punch went through the page number. It's under,
Page 8.
Look at the page below.
Yeah, the one below is-
oh, okay, yeah, page 8. Line 610, supplies. Looking to reduce by $1,500.
That music.
Yes.
I'll second that one because that's on the list.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Taylor, a second by Mrs. Douglas. Discussion.
I just don't feel that we need to budget for those types of supplies. And if we do, then it can certainly come out of the emergency, not the specific music budget.
Okay, further discussion?
Is that increase is based on the PPE equipment?
Yes.
What was your proposed decrease? I'm sorry.
$1,500.
1,500, the last item there.
My rationale is a lot of, when your child signs up for music, I mean, I'm still paying for a saxophone we rented. There are expenses. I pay for the reeds. I pay for other items associated with my child choosing to participate in a music program.
Yeah, same for any program, I would say. Yeah.
So I see PPE as part of I know what I paid for the bell cover for the saxophone. I know what I did for the masks. I just at some point, it's just, we need to figure out what do the taxpayers need to spend and what is not unreasonable to ask for participants to fund. And to me, if a child is paying to rent a clarinet, a child's paying to rent a saxophone or other items, it is not unreasonable based on the fact that we already expect parents to participate in the funding of this program to provide the PPE for their child.
You have a ballpark of what that would cost each child individually
Depends on the
as a
instrument.
fee?
It's going to vary by the instrument, to be honest. I mean, so the bag that goes over the saxophone is different than the bell cover on a horn. So it really will vary.
My one, it was less than $20 to outfit my child. And we play an alto sax.
Okay, further discussion?
And the reality is there are funds available if it really is a hardship, right? So it's not like you're saying your child cannot play ever if you can't afford it. But the reality is it's not an unreasonable request to ask of the parents to provide that.
And the more expensive PPE would be the more complicated instruments that we loan out that people are not buying in the first place.
Mm,
Like the
in some
bassoon
cases.
or whatever.
We own my daughter's instrument, and it's one of the big. We need a big bell cover, and so that's not a universal thing. But
Okay.
let's go ahead and vote.
All right, let's move it to a vote. Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
I am a no. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Stevens? Mr. Barca?
Yes.
Yes. And Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, that one passes 7-0.
I have another motion.
Okay, Mr. Taylor?
See on page 10, line 610, supplies, looking to reduce that particular line item by $600 from $14,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
So I had asked during the presentations in terms of the rotation of the courses for AP Science, and it was my understanding from Mr. Lonigan's answer that AP Bio and Physics will not run during the 2023 budget because it'll be time for Chem and Environmental. So why budget if the classes aren't running? So looking to cut the $400 line item for bio and $200 for physics, please.
This is for the AP courses.
Yes.
If the course isn't running, then sure. But do we know for sure that the course isn't running?
I asked Mr.
Yeah.
Lonigan and he confirmed that they're
Okay.
on a 2-year schedule. So those ones would not be running
What were
in
the
the
two?
2023
What were
year.
the two that were running? Chem and physics.
Chem and
Environmental.
Chem and environmental
And
run
chem is
together,
in.
and then bio and physics run.
There's
together.
no so
There's no AP Chem or AP.
right. That's my
Right.
point. I don't.
Yeah, there
see
is
the-
HL, A&P, AP Chem for $3,000. Further down in the
Where?
table.
Fourth from the bottom on.
Oh, I
Okay.
see. I see AP Chem. Yeah,
I think I'm more heartbroken by the fact that AP
Right.
Physics isn't being offered.
it says H&L, AP Chem. I don't see environmental science.
Oh, because I don't know if I'm looking at it.
Is the idea behind that it's the same kids going it? So you would take AP Bio freshman year, AP Environmental sophomore year. Is that why they alternate?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Derek.
Okay.
It's,
It's the wrong one.
because they have the 4 APs, and if you dilute, there's only so many students who are going to take an AP science
Yeah.
course. So if you dilute it out, you end up with these tiny courses
No,
of
that's
5
not-
kids here, 6 kids there. Versus on an alternating basis, you can get that up to, I mean, I'd like to have a dozen
Yeah.
plus, right? So that's a way to get at it by alternating.
Okay, motion second, further discussion?
We
I appreciate the logic. It just kills me that we're not offering, that we don't have the demand for the classes. It just, right, it hurts.
I agree with Mr. Taylor. If the courses aren't running, I don't see the need for the supplies. We're sure those courses are not going to run.
We can always add them
I'm
back.
still not seeing it. Can I show you what I'm looking at?
Chemistry. See, I'm not sure we're getting this right because I think
Is this one? Because I have.
chemistry's running this year and last year, so I think
485
chemistry's off.
or
I think we got the rotation backwards. We're voting again. Can I get back to you with exactly what we're running?
Yeah.
Because it's a great. As soon as you said it, I'm like, why do we have all those in there? So let me find out exactly what's running next time. If you
Really?
can hold on that boat, I will support cutting the ones that aren't running because that's absolutely what they shouldn't be in there. That's an oversight.
Did you want to withdraw it?
I'll withdraw.
I'll withdraw my second. He withdraws his.
Thank you, Dr. Jetty.
Done?
Can I? No, please, I'm not done.
I have mine.
You should know by now, Carrie.
No, I have mine, so I'm just waiting
So
for you
let me-
to see
let me
which
play
ones you're
too.
going to hit.
All right. All right. So then make a motion, page 12, line item 738, equipment replacement. The wall map to be replaced with a drop down, looking to reduce that line item from $400 to $200 to match what a market rate would be for one of those types of maps.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second, okay. Wall map reduction of $200,
Market rate. That's it.
market rate. Discussion.
Is that really still needed?
Didn't you just Google one in class and just like put it up on the.
Are you sure that's market rate?
So,
What's
Why
that?
do
Are you sure
need
that's
it?
market rate? Did you look it up? Or?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
But I guess but if it's a pull down, you don't need it to be printed out. You just need to project it on a screen. With a projector, a screen, and a computer, like, are we? As much as I appreciate, pens and papers, is it appropriate?
Can you get that detail on a projector?
I don't know what you need to do with it. Like, how
think you
project?
get
How detailed can you be if
better
I'm in the back of the class
quality
looking at
product
it?
Yeah. We want to go up and look at it, you know?
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, on a
Touch it.
projector, you can zoom in. Like, they have to have.
What was your motion to reduce that to what?
To reduce it to 200 to match market rate.
Worst case, they can buy an app that has a detailed map for.
I'm sorry. Can I just? What page are we on?
Yeah, so that's on
Page 10.
page 12,
sorry.
Dr. Jetty, and it's
It's the
738
cane wall map.
equipment
That's-
replacement.
Okay. I will. Yeah. Yes. Make sure I'm following the right.
How'd you find it? You did just Google decaying wall map and.
What is it a
That's
map
very
of?
handy.
I want to make sure we're buying the right map. Because I'm not sure which one it is.
What class is that for?
It's social studies, so
Anatomy.
No, that's a map.
All right, any other discussion on this one? Roll call vote, Mr. Sun.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Saracen?
No.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Yes.
Stevens, yes. Mr. Burka?
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
All right, 810 pass. Mr. Taylor?
All right, page 15. Line item 561 under CHS vocational education tuition. Looking to reduce that line item by $5,940, which matches the 4 students for Pinkerton.
Motion, I will second. Discussion.
On page 15, line 561 under CHS vocational education tuition.
Do we know how many kids are going to Pinkerton next year, though, or is that
There's
just
40 currently enrolled.
Not to Pinkerton.
Pinkerton wise,
there are 4 this
4
year.
in Pinkerton this year.
So just I'm sorry. What was the dollar amount cut? The
Yep.
90.
It would be the $5,940, and I did it based on the note that's there that says 4 students to Pinkerton, $990 per student.
So just one thing that I think is important is if you have a student in the first year of a 2-year program, I think cutting that out from underneath them could create a hardship that they would not be able to, as a senior, enroll into a comparable program, right? So that's just an issue that I'd like to be able to flesh out a little bit to figure out.
Is there any way you could get back to me with the number of juniors that you have enrolled this year? And I'd be happy to change to reflect allowing however many, let's just say 2.
Yep.
2 to complete, but then
Yes.
not fund.
If you would entertain
two.
that, I think
Yes.
that's something that we can look at.
Are we looking to cut Pinkerton altogether, or
I'm not.
okay? Is that what your idea was, just to stop using Pinkerton, or?
Yes.
How many students are we budgeting for?
According to this, it says 4.
Right, but I'm just saying in between, because I just see CHS sent 40 to Alvern this year times 1,027 is not 34,943 anyway. So 40 at 1,000 is already at, so is it even already included in your line to begin with? Because if I multiply 40 students times 1027, 76.
It's already low, yeah.
I think the number's right. I just think it's the description's wrong.
I think it's an old description.
Yeah.
And just to make one,
I think we need to
one more
review
point
this
as far as
line.
Yeah,
the
let-
discussion before we close out. I understand we
Yeah.
went through it.
Give us a chance to review
Yep.
this line, and we'll bring it back.
Sure.
Because I'm noticing that too in the note.
So I'll withdraw my second.
Did you want to add, were you going to add anything else to your comments?
I was, but I can wait until we cover it and do a vote. So
My
it's
only-
fresh in everybody's mind.
My only ask would be, in addition to the numbers that Mr. Taylor was asking about with juniors and seniors, are any of those programs that these students are taking at Pinkerton available or not available at Alvern?
I believe they go to Pinkerton because they're not available at Alvern.
That's correct. I believe that to be accurate also.
So I know at least for my son, for example, his program and other students that went with him to Pinkerton were also offered at Alvern. I have done the research. For the most part, I think there's only a couple of programs that are only offered at Pinkerton. Probably the most popular one might be cosmetology.
So that's, that's noteworthy that if it's not available somewhere else, legally, if a student wants to access a program at Pinkerton that's not available at Alvern, we're obligated to do that.
Right.
Right?
And
Because-
and that's the point. We went in through this extensively. Somebody could go to Berlin if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Just part of the issue would be based on past experience with my son going to Pinkerton really does hinder as far as then being able to take the following class at Campbell, because then at that point the transportation cuts deeply into the next period class versus Alvern doesn't have that same issue as far as cutting into. So yes, obviously anybody that wanted to go any place is perfectly fine. I would think that they would also have to be able to meet the criteria of being able to take enough classes at Campbell in order to be able to graduate.
Absolutely. Yep. So we'll get back to you on exactly what that breakdown is,
Okay.
and that note has got to be updated.
Okay, so if you could just formally,
I will withdraw my motion.
thank you.
Yep.
It's question number 17.
Sorry, Carrie, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. I'm happy to wait. I'm exercising I can be patient.
All right, so then page 30. CHS vocation. Well, actually, you know what? I'll hold off. I'll hold off on that one because it's the transportation.
Okay.
So I'll hold that based on what we hear for results. And that's it. I'm done.
Any other motions on CHS?
Page 7. Math, line 610. General supplies, including colored pencils, compasses, rulers. I'd like to make a motion to reduce that by $300.
We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second?
Is there a reason? Oh,
Second
second for
by Mr.
conversation.
Second
Yeah.
by
Well-
Mr. Leary.
I mean, we're talking in one class. I didn't. Students have supply lists. Teachers can have supply lists. Kids can bring in colored pencils because I know I'm a colored pencil snob. I like certain ones. I like my kid to. I have no problem providing compasses. Standard thing you can get at Walmart aisle for not too much. Rulers again can easily be provided. Why? There's a limit to what I think students we should provide to the student versus what the student can be expected to bring. And we're not. It just to me, it's teachers have class supply lists. There's no reason colored pencils can't be on it.
Typically, the high school teacher, I haven't seen a supply list from a high school teacher other than the scientific calculators.
But then maybe we need to bring them back. So I understand teachers needing whiteboard markers and other stuff, but providing a ruler to a kid,
I would think there should be a classroom basket,
something, it's just,
right?
Yeah, I don't know. The actuals are the money's definitely being spent. $600 seems like pretty minimal supplies for a math program, I would think.
And the school board did reduce this one. It looks like from 900 to 600.
that was like the whole punched paper or something, because there's an I guess expectation that everything's provided, and I'm saying a parent can provide colored pencils, a compass, and a ruler without much effort. And if they can't, there are resources available.
All right, we got a motion and a second for the discussion. All right, roll call vote. Mr. Sun?
No.
Ms. Harrison?
No.
Mr. Leary?
No.
I'm a no. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Stevens? Mr. Barca?
No.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Motion fails 3-6.
All right, page 10, line 640, textbook replacement for science. Elsewhere in the budget, this particular account has been reduced to $1. This is the only one that actually has, and it tends to be a holding. Like, we expect we'll have to replace a couple of textbooks. So my proposal is to reduce it to $1, so a reduction of $17.59. That way, so stop there.
1,759.
What's the online access, apes? Oh, sorry. Second for discussion.
So again, it just brings it in line with other classes where there's $1 in there. Clearly, we've had discussions of, well, it's an allowance essentially, and given the amount of money at the end of fund balance, if we have to replace 2 textbooks, it can be absorbed within the budget.
All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Do we have a second?
Yeah,
Derek,
he's
second.
sick.
Derek, sir.
What line is this? I'm sorry, Carrie.
I have 640 textbook
Bringing the
replacement, page
Top of
10.
page 11.
Bringing the loss.
At least that's what I wrote.
So
You're right.
All right.
It's the bottom of page 10.
to Mr.
you.
Barca's question, I think he was getting ready to ask, can we get clarification on what's the online access for apes? Because I'm wondering why that's bundled with textbook replacements.
I think I just hit textbook. So, I mean, my reduction is specifically to the textbook.
So just the 1760.
Yeah, I would
Got
reduce
it.
that one sub account to $1
Well, it must
because
be-
that is what it's $1 elsewhere in other
So
subjects.
So the budget outline item for 640 would be $751.
Yes. We can have a discussion of whether the rest of it's needed, but the reality is other textbook replacement accounts within the CHS budget are $1. So it's an allowance, may or may not get spent, but knowing my position on end of fund balance, I don't think we have a problem absorbing 1 or 2 textbooks should the need arise.
And isn't science an area that's going through or getting ready to go through a textbook adoption? Didn't Mary talk
I
about
think
that?
it's under review for next year.
I believe that is accurate.
I mean, if that's the case,
That comes up at GMS, don't worry.
All right, motion second. Further discussion?
I guess, is there a reason the online access, I'm assuming that's AP, environmental science, apes.
Correct.
Is there a reason that's in there and not, is that where it normally would be?
Should probably be under 644
yeah.
for online access.
Oh, I see, yeah.
That'd be a simple reclass.
Should we move that then, or?
Or I can move it if he wants to.
But you can't move it if you take it away.
I didn't take that away. I didn't touch that one.
That part's staying though. The line would
Yeah.
become $751.
Oh, okay.
That's something I'd probably go back after our review tonight and I'd probably reclass it in the budget.
I only touched the textbook replacement. At least that was my intent.
Okay. I thought you were reducing the whole thing to $1, sorry.
No, just
Just the textbook.
Okay.
So the next line, the 641 is textbooks new. Is it just that those $1 lines, are they meant for something else?
in the past, we've carried like 5 textbooks, and the expectation we'd have to 5 would get damaged throughout the year. So this is the one that got left in. Or I don't know. For some reason, everybody else removed theirs, but this one.
Or it could be that those books have been damaged or need to be replaced. I mean, if we're gonna,
$1 in an account signifies the ability to be able to transfer into that account.
You zero
Makes
it.
Right.
it makes it part of the appropriation.
So I guess I'm trying to understand what's the difference between lost replacement text and then the next one is new textbooks. Is that just like if an updated version comes out?
Yeah, most of the time, new textbooks go through curriculum.
So lost,
Or
sometimes
first
they'll
go.
hit up a parent,
Placements
like
go
here
through
you
the
have a
school.
damage fee, or
Sure.
it's destroyed for some reason. So, and new would be like, I have a new student, I need a
Yeah,
new book.
enrollment goes up. I need additional.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're not mixing up the different accounts. Okay.
Just to protect this, what will you move out of there? The 750 or 749?
The
You
750
wanna
because
leave-
she's leaving $1.
I was kind enough to do that.
Oh, because she's
It's going to be down to 751.
Gotcha.
So I'd move the 750 down to 644.
I know
Same
how
with
this
the
works.
All right, we ready for a vote?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Nope.
No. Okay. Mr. Leary?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Yes.
Stevens? Mr. Barca?
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
All right, passes 810. Any other motions on CHS?
So I have a question. There's a note in one of the things on camcorder replacement, page 14. I think it's in your write-up about, or maybe it's in the information here, where they did not buy them this year. Is there a reason we did not use this year's funds to spend ahead, since it's already allocated specifically for camcorders?
It was not brought to me to do so.
So it got rolled into the end of year fund balance and so from a practical standpoint, I absolutely understand, but this is again the kind of thing that just drives me nuts. If we had money specifically for camcorders, we didn't spend it, we know we're going to need them, we should have bought them ahead. So
Last year was also
I understand
very
why
much
they
an
didn't buy
anomaly,
it.
Carrie.
I understand why they didn't get bought, but again, I'm not buying 4 this year. I know I'm going to need 4 next year.
I'm sorry, is there a motion?
No, I wanted clarification, but it's the fact that it didn't get discussed.
All right, any other motions on CHS?
What's the new bottom line on CHS? Do you have
The new bottom line is 2 motions passed this evening. And that takes us down to, that can't be right.
Three passing.
I have 3 passing too.
I have 3. I'm sorry, yes, because, yes, this recent one just passed. Sorry.
3459.
This, 460. I have 567,226.
Yes, I confirm that.
It's always good when you confirm this early in the
567,226. All right, let's shift gears into LMS, please. All right, so
Hey.
LMS,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, LMS has a bottom line of 133,821. Are there any motions on the LMS budget this evening?
I actually had a question on page 6, line 430, repairs and maintenance. So there's repair and maintenance of FM system for 1 student, which was budgeted last year for this current year. And then we also have to budget again for it next year. Is that $480 in annual maintenance that needs to be done?
Upkeep of
Or do
the
we
FM
have
system.
multiple devices?
In the FM system, is that
I think the reason it's worded for 1 student because it is student
it
specific.
follows the student?
Correct.
And so basically every year we should expect that we have to pay the 480 for the
For
maintenance.
the upkeep on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, turning it over to motions or questions on LMS.
On page 3, music, 610 supplies, same thing as Campbell. We have a $3,000 line for PPE.
I missed that one.
And I would like to think that we won't need it next year. And if we do, the same thing, parents are supplying masks. So we should be able to supply the coverings for the instruments too, I believe.
So is there a motion?
So there's a motion to reduce that line by $3,000, $3,100.
Second.
We have a motion to
What page was that again?
Page 3,
3,100, right?
$3,100.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Stevens, a second by
Mrs. Douglas.
Mrs. Douglas. Further discussion?
Nice catch.
Do you want to leave a dollar
That's
in there?
consistent, right?
Just in case? Yeah, zero it out, just
Well,
in
we-
case this isn't over yet.
Well, at LMS, we expected parents to provide it at CHS. So,
I guess is that whole line of 3,100 PPE though?
I'm sorry.
Is that whole line really PPE? I mean, I know that's the only
According to the
description,
Comments, but
but I mean,
I-
actuals are like 2,700, 3,100.
Right. I think usually it's also for sheet music and other supplies for music programs.
But she uses the smart music subscription as a software, so they're probably doing the sheet music through that there, down there.
That was
I think
my
those
other
are two different things.
Well, there's
question
just,
is why
yeah.
is it double?
Thought there was
Just based
one.
on
I'm just theorizing.
parent of band kids.
I would say leave a dollar in there just in case. I agree.
Can I amend my motion to
Do?
reduce it by $2,099? No, I'm not going to do this right in my head.
$30.99.
Got it.
$3,099.
I'll second that one too.
All right. Amended motion. Further discussion?
Just for clarification, the PPE costs at LMS are twice as much as that at CHS that was originally proposed. What was the why behind that again?
More
More
students.
More
students.
students.
Because we have general music in fifth and in seventh.
Every student goes through that.
Right.
So they need the PPE for general music too?
If they're singing, yeah.
Or if they're singing for just regular masks at that point?
It's a singing mess. So it's a
The
little.
singing
I
mask.
don't understand what a singing mask is, but
So are those?
It doesn't muffle your voice
I
as
mean,
much.
in that case, we need to provide the singing mask, though, I
That's
think.
what I was.
Right.
Yeah, fifth and sixth grade required that every student goes through that.
But chorus is an extracurricular, is it not? It's
Chorus
no,
is
this
a
is the
class.
chorus. This is the general music program.
General music is fifth and seventh.
And you have to take a music class.
Correct.
So I'll make a
Are we,
motion.
yeah,
I'll
are
make
we cutting that out?
well,
We're
why
not
don't we have them
providing
come
music
back
to
with the
them.
cost?
They're not budgeted at GMS either
Right.
to have these masks.
Well, yeah, I guess you do sing at GMS too, right? In just regular.
I mean, they have, yeah.
They've
Hopefully we
they've
don't need
They
it.
just use their regular masks. down there.
yeah, down there they don't care as much, probably. What it sounds like.
They're not worried about the armature and
But I think what I'm trying to rationalize through is that at CHS, to the points of I think why we voted for that was that these were something students were electing to take. There was a cost associated with that. They know that when they sign up for band or whatever. Whereas if you have fifth and seventh grade and every student is going through that, I do think that is something that should be provided. So I will make a motion to amend Mrs. Stevens' amended motion and reduce that by half.
So what happens if we don't need them? Like, because we hopefully by the time it's what we're talking many years, many months in advance, there are local schools I've seen pictures without masks singing. So if we put this in and we don't need it, it's going to get used somewhere else. So are we better off just saying, reality is we can absorb $1,000 if we had to buy PPE? If for some reason it's still the need's still there.
Potentially.
That would be my thing. I hope for the best. I've seen local schools children at Christmas concert or other concerts without the mask
So
on.
just
So the
by,
hope
I'll
is we
second
don't
his
need it.
amended
by
motion.
way of order, all right, by way of order,
I
we
don't
have
think
an
I've
amended
fin-
motion.
I don't think I finished my amended motion. So to reduce her amended motion by half. So whatever the math,
Can we say?
1,000. Let's call it $1,600.
Thank you.
Keep it clean.
It says made and seconded. I will vote no again for the reason of one, my extreme hope is that we don't need this come the time this
All right.
budget hits.
So let's
And
vote on
two,
the
we can
amended
absorb it.
motion.
So, yep, go ahead.
All right. So the amended motion, just so everyone's clear, is to reduce line 610 out of LMS by $1,600. Okay. Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Nope.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Douglas.
No, I want the full amount.
Mr. Taylor.
No.
Ms. Stevens.
know I'm not supposed to ask a question, but I don't know what happens next. If this fails,
It's
Then
the
we go
smaller
back to-
number.
back to
Then we go
yours.
back to the
Back
bigger
to your
reduction.
motion.
the original one?
Yes.
Okay, then no.
Okay,
Yes.
Barker, yes. And Mr. Hayes for the tiebreaker.
No.
Okay, it fails 4-5-0. Now we're back to the original motion of a reduction of $3,099. Further discussion.
I beat that horse.
All right, let's do the
We've
roll
had
call
it.
vote. Mr. Sun,
No.
Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
No.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
We pass 6-3. Okay. Bottom line of $130,669.
No. All right.
Nothing.
I have what is it? Page 2, math, line 640. Math is noted in curriculum as being about to be, the program's being, a new program is to be adopted. So since we're adopting a new program, there should be no textbook replacements required because they'll all be new.
So there's new
So I
textbook.
would make a reduction of $1,000 for science, or $999, a
Would-
reduction of $900.
Line 640, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
What page?
Second.
Page 2, math, line 640.
All
Textbook
right.
replacement.
So we have a motion for a reduction of line 640 math by $999. It was motioned by Ms. Douglas, second by Mr. Taylor. Discussion, please.
So the way this reads doesn't read like a textbook replacement. It reads like a textbook new for additional students.
Well, then it should be in a different line item because it's under
I-
textbook replacement.
I would agree with that.
I guess to your original point, though, is there a whole new math package in the?
That's what it says in the
budget?
curriculum, new program to be adopted. I was gonna look it up.
Because if there's a new program, then I would assume that the correct number of folks would be in that line item, right?
I think.
I think she also does an overage of 5 just in case we get new enrollments over the course of the year.
But that should be in the initial order though.
Right, I understand.
So is this
Oh, I think
a unnecessary item or is it,
I don't know. I mean, that's a very,
The replacement ones.
I don't want to see a kid.
We
Do we know that
typically
these are for the
carry,
old
I'm sorry?
Do we know that these are for the old curriculum?
yeah. See, I
We
think that,
typically have an allowance for textbook replacement of 5, but we are replacing the curriculum, so we shouldn't be replacing the new curriculum books with old books anyway, because we should have a whole new order. So next year, we can talk about whether or not we should have a textbook replacement, but we should have all new books.
I'm wondering what happens if 5 of the new textbooks are destroyed.
That'll be in next year's budget.
I would ask for clarification.
Yeah.
So- is that for pre-K? Because the way I read that is the PKG, I read that as pre-K, which
Package.
you see package.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if it's packaged, yes, correct. I read it as pre-K, which isn't included in the new programming. That's for K4.
So I'm going to have to get clarity on that. So I read it as package also, but it might be pre-K. Pre-K
Because I
is
didn't-
usually PK and not
Yeah.
with a G, so
Right.
that's the,
It says new math programming K4. Journeys K-4.
in the curriculum budget.
Yep.
Correct.
In the math
To be honest, I don't
journals,
think
is
we
that?
have text in PK.
the math
Right.
journals
I
is
know.
it's a supplemental.
I think this
to whatever
truly
math
is-
program we have.
If they have
Okay.
students who move in, they just
New-
need
these are
the
new.
ability to fund.
So in
the
order
books.
to be consistent with CHS and what we've done, would the committee be willing to withdraw the second in the motion and allow the opportunity for the SAU to research?
Sure. I
I'll
withdraw
withdraw.
my motion. Highlight it yellow. So page 3-4 starts on one, goes to the next. Social studies, line 640, textbook replacement, I propose a reduction of $500.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Douglas for a reduction of $500. I'm sorry, that was line 640 again?
I'll second for
Well,
discussion.
just looking at this one actually looks like they spend it a couple every so often, and the 3-year average, if we ignore 2020, because it's on the order of about $500. So sure, we'll bring it in line with annual expenditures. I don't know why it hits here and
And
not
again, I'm
elsewhere.
confirming this is line 640.
Yes, line 640, textbook replacement. Bringing it in line with annual expenditures would be my proposal. Granted, we sure we can make it consistent with the other ones and bring it down to $1 and absorb, but this one actually had,
Is there a social studies curriculum in the curriculum budget?
I didn't see that one.
Because I believe the
Is
social
Journeys
studies.
is English, isn't it?
Journeys is English. So I
Didn't-
believe the social studies book is a consumable for grades 1 through 4.
Right.
It
In that
is.
case, they would need to replace them every year.
Okay, well then $500 makes sense because that's about what they've been spending on an annual basis as opposed to 1,000. Because there's historical data there. 412, 0382, asking for 1,000, asking for 1,000, asking for 1,000. So based on what I have here, 500 should be enough.
Any other discussion?
You know, it looks like 2020 and 2021, it's $1,200 pretty much across the board.
I'm thinking that they replace it twice a year, once at the beginning and once
In social studies?
Where do you
halfway
see?
through the year.
Where do you see
I'm just-
1,200? I don't see 1,200. I see 1,000. No, for year to date.
Oh, and I went to the wrong one.
I think you were looking at
I
the total,
apologize.
I'm still thinking though that they replace that twice a year.
But the annual expense for textbook in this line item in 2019 was $412. In
Then it was
2020, it was
zero,
zero,
and then it was
and it's 382.
Yeah.
There's no number in the year-to-date expense, and I honestly didn't look up the report. But I mean, we should be able to have a number there. $1,000 for this year. So
I wonder though if there isn't if it's a if there's been software added or if it's a different program from what it was in 2019.
then it goes in a different line item. But this is textbook replacement.
No, I mean for the last 3 years we've budgeted $1,000, so I don't know.
What?
I'd rather ask Mary what that
Well, we can look
that
at
is.
it.
But it's the will of the board.
Dan, though.
Hmm?
That's Dan.
That's Dan's budget.
Yeah. Oh, right.
How much are you reducing, Carrie?
$500. Well, that's what I would like to reduce it. That's my proposal.
All right, shall we call the vote?
Sure.
All right, Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Leary,
No.
I'm a yes. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
and Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Passes 7-2. Anything else on GMS?
Nope, those were my two. One
Anybody
stapled,
else?
one censored.
GMS. All right, as of right now, we have a new bottom line on GMS of 130,169.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I didn't announce, I don't believe I announced the LMS bottom line after the
didn't.
reduction. I did not.
You did not.
It's, sorry, 130,722. 130,722. All right, curriculum, bottom line of 151,317. Curriculum this evening. Hearing none, we'll shift gears into technology. Technology has a bottom line of 398,657. Any motions to the technology budget this evening? right.
Oh, no, I will do it. I was waiting. But he's not doing it.
Great way for him.
Page 1.
Okay.
734, fifth grade Chromebooks. I actually have 2 motions on this one. Keep them simple. I would like to make an initial reduction of $1,800.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. I will second it for discussion.
Is that the LMS Chromebooks?
Actually, 5th grade Chromebooks. Yes. So yes, it reduces the number of Chromebooks to 101. I understand we'd like to have extras. The reality is, if we need an extra, there's funding available for it. We have 101. Actually, this brings me back to another question. I don't know that we've seen enrollment projections, so I'm assuming 101 is correct than anticipated enrollment. But if we could actually get the
Enrollment projections were sent to the board.
I have
In
10-1 dates,
Yeah.
but I don't have enrollment
They
projections for the
were
next
part of
several
their
years.
presentation.
It was in the presentation.
I went through the paperwork I have here and I did not see it.
Is it in the file? Maybe I missed
I didn't see it in the
folder.
file either.
It's linked to the
Yeah.
presentation. Did you share the presentation with you?
And
You
Corey
see,
sent out all
you
the
see that
links. It
link,
should be in
page,
there.
page hard to miss. Doesn't work if I do this, but in the actual presentation.
So traditionally, we get a hard copy. So if we could get a hard copy or an emailed PDF that I could print out.
Sorry, Gary, could you just lighten up on the tone a little bit.
Sure, I would like to be. A lot of our discussions are based on enrollment. In my view, I don't have that information to use. So right now, I am basing this based on what I saw in the notes somewhere else in the presentation of 101 students. So my recommendation is to reduce the line item to reflect what I believe to be the updated enrollment based on the information I was able to pull out. But I would like the actual enrollment projections to for other purposes.
So the actual enrollment projection for next year in grade 5 is 101
Perfect.
students.
Then-
That is the correct number. And that's the number I believe that's in the answer sheet.
Google Doc, yes.
Right, maybe that's where I got it from.
So that comes straight from that document that was provided at the first meeting.
Perfect.
For 22?
That's, yep.
What's
So-
for 23? Because this is the budget we're voting on.
Well, those students will project forward, right? So that they get the devices, that they're still going to be 100. Well, actually, this says we think 100 the year after. We may lose one. Move out, not lose.
Okay, but the following year, what's going to be the 5th grade?
The following year, 5th grade number will be 91.
Okay, so, all right, so there's room. I
So
didn't want to
yes,
see 107 come in and only have 101 Chromebooks. That was the reason why. Okay,
so again, mine is we base things off of projections. What I believe to be the projection was 101. This brings the Chromebooks to that 101 number. That
And
was
they're
my-
budgeting a few extras, right? I mean,
I get that, but again, what happens if we don't need them? They're just sitting like we don't need them. We don't spend it. It gets moved elsewhere. We need the money. We have enough for 101. We can find $300 in the budget. So my expectation, my thing is, we budget to the projection. The projection is 101. That was why I made my motion.
okay, thank you. Further discussion.
so it's $1,800.
So the motion was $1,800 reduction. Yes. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Sun,
No.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I'm a no. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
No.
Stevens, Mr. Barca,
No.
and Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
All right, motion fails 4-5.
Can we get confirmation of the cost per device? Because looking at current market value of what we can buy a pretty nice one. It's less than 300. So I understand. If the number ends up being lower, then I would adjust this number. So I want to make sure that we discussed before that this was an anticipation that the costs are up because it's hard to come by. But looking online, you can buy a pretty decent one for less than $250. So I'd like to
It
make sure that
includes the
we're,
licensing too per device. Right.
but that should be elsewhere in the,
Oh, no, it's all.
It's included. It's all inclusive.
Yeah, it's all kind of bundled. And
well, when I'm buying a Chromebook, I'm telling you, I can buy a really nice one for $2. So $250 would be fine, but I'd like to make sure that we're actually reflecting that.
And typically, when you buy a Chromebook, like from a Best Buy or a Walmart, it has a very stripped down warranty with it.
Mm-hmm.
When you're buying for schools and students, it is going to go up a little bit because it's going to have a better warranty.
But is it
associated with
300? So this is why I'd like to say what exactly.
It's 300 because that's
Yes.
what Jason budgeted at.
I understand that's what he budgeted at.
Right.
But is that actually what it's going to cost? What
That's
I'm asking.
correct. That's why Jason, who has been our long-term tech director and has done a great job rolling this out, he doesn't pad his budget. You take a look. He's down almost $100,000 in his ask. He has budgeted correctly for the need.
All right, you had a second motion for tech?
Yes, that's fine. You know what?
Okay.
Let's do it. I am going to make a motion to reduce. Let's recount it.
Where you at?
I'm going to 734 because I now have to change it 107. Let's see. A reduction of $2,600.
This is for the same line.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so we have a reduction on line 734 for $2,600. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Second by Ms. Stevens. Okay.
We can say it's 300. We can say it's 200, 275. I honestly, maybe a spec sheet shows me 300. I don't think it's 300. So I'm saying 275. That's what my number is based off of. So 107 devices because we decided that we're going to throw in extras at 275 a device.
Okay. Discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Sun,
No.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Leary.
No.
I am a no. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
No.
All right.
No.
Ms. Stevens, Mr. Barca,
No.
and Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Motion fails 2-7. Anything else on tech?
So what is a reasonable extra? Is 10, 5? Because we have 10 extras for ninth grade. If I reduced it to 102 as opposed to 97, since we already have extras in the district?
So, extras, let's understand what an extra is when you're dealing with fifth graders.
I'm not dealing with ninth graders.
Which question am I answering? You just said
I'm-
107. Where are you?
I'm on ninth grade Chromebooks. We've said that 6 is good for fifth grade for extras. How many is appropriate for ninth grade?
On page 2.
So on page 2,
It's a smaller class size to begin with because we're at 92, 97 students.
Yep.
What is an appropriate excess to have available for whatever purposes? Is it 10?
so we're dealing with ninth graders now. So these are not extras just sitting on a shelf. They are loaners. A student comes in and forgot their Chromebook. That happens. A student came in with an uncharged Chromebook. That happens. A student comes in with a broken Chromebook. That happens. You have a few extras that you're able to loan out
Mhm.
in that scenario. So
And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have extras, but the reality is if we do 10 to 15 every year, you have 45 extras because every year you've bought 10 extras.
but when they do get damaged beyond use, right? And so then we have that. So it's
But we
it's
also
not
have
as if we're
insurance. So does that
make
get
make it
offset?
sound like we've got 2 classes of Chromebooks sitting somewhere unused, which is not even close to reality. So
So we have 45 loaned out on a given basis.
if a Chromebook is damaged beyond use,
Mhm.
it's replaced with that one. Now, granted, it's charged against the insurance
Mhm.
program,
Mhm.
but
But we can't take the time to order it and wait for one to come in.
Correct.
we
So
have a stock
40
on the shelf.
40 to 45, well, actually it's more than that. So it's 40 in the high school, another
Wait. Where are you getting 40
if you're
now?
getting 10 every year in your budget, those you're not going to keep you're not going to keep
There's not
So-
45
you have
Chromebooks
10 for ninth
sitting
grade
around.
this year. So next year you get another 10. The next year you get another 10. What happens to the first 10? It's still there.
I'm
Unless
pretty
they're
sure they get
used to fix
dispersed.
their-
Our
repairs.
tech director is very responsible on how this program is taken
this
care
is
of. I
correct.
think you're trying to make this picture that there's just random Chromebooks sitting all over the place. They get given to students as replacement. They get damaged. You should see some of the things that come in.
let me ask the question.
I have, like I'm saying, I have no problem with the idea that there should be extras. What is the appropriate amount?
So-
If we're getting 10 every year, and say you burn through 5, okay, so now you have 20 sitting around. Is that the right amount? Do we need 10 every year?
I seem to think 10's a reasonable number.
I'm glad you
All due
do.
respect, this is why we have a tech director to guide
With
us.
all
in
due respect,
creating
it's
the
my job to
budgets.
make sure we're paying correctly. If it's not,
But you're asking questions that have been answered.
All
Can
right,
I,
is there another motion on this?
I'm entitled. How about you give me a list of questions I'm allowed to ask?
Well,
Can
we
I-
debated it and the motion failed.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
That's no. Well, we did vote on this one. I was asking for clarification as to what the appropriate extra is. So clearly, we're comfortable with what's there. So that's
Right, the motion failed.
fine.
All right.
Motion, Judge.
Any other conversation or questions on tech?
I'm going to find out. I'll get back to you with a number. How many spares are just on hand? I cannot believe 40 even comes close, but I'm going to get a number for that. I'll have it next time.
Final call on tech. All right, moving into special services. Special services has a bottom line of 1,202,496. I'll open it up to the committee.
So I looked through all of my binders going back to 2014, and I've looked at what we've budgeted versus what we actually spend. And what we actually spend is on this, but at least in this section, we spend less than 80% of what is budgeted in an annual year. What we budget in your line item versus the actual expenditures. The 3-year average from the binders I pulled was 78.5%. The 5-year average, 78%. The 8-year average, because that's as far as I can go, is 77.7%. So when I sit here every year and I tell you that I feel that this budget's too high, and there are people who say, but you're not being fair, there's all these things that happen. These are why I have these beliefs, that the data shows me that what we budget is far in excess of what we end up spending. So I'm going to make a recommendation of reducing this line item by $240,000.
All right.
That is a 20% reduction, which is still in excess of the 8-year, the 3-year, and the 5-year average of what we spend versus what is budgeted.
And that's the bottom line.
That's a bottom line because,
Carrie, you went back to 2014.
yes, I did.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Douglas to reduce special services by $240,000. Is there a second?
I second it.
Traditional,
By Mr.
thank
Hayes.
you, Mr. Hayes. In the past, we have may take even keep in mind these reductions are keeping in the consideration that we used to reduce this line by $200,000 in a year. So when in 2016 we spent 89% of the budget, that's still factoring in the fact that we reduced the original budget significantly before that. This 2020, we're up, obviously, things happen. 81%. 2021, 75, 76%. So, and this is the function of, yes, we're budgeting far in advance. We budget based on what we know today's needs to be. But the reality is today's needs are not tomorrow's because of all the services that we provide between today and tomorrow. So it's not that I don't think that this department is worth it. And I don't think it needs to be invested. The reality is the data is that we do not spend we over budget this significantly every year.
Can you call out any particular section that underspends drastically to make up that number?
This is the bottom line. It's a bottom line thing. So it's sometimes you'll have tuition lower, sometimes you'll have services lower. On the whole, when you look at the overall budget,
Most of yours has been tuition.
it's tuition.
Transportation, probably.
Yeah, but that's not.
That's a different one.
That's
So-
not in this
Isn't
one.
transportation this one?
But when you compare what is listed as the budgeted value for the year and you go back to what the actually hits against that budget on an annual year, it's significantly lower. And even in this past year, we had enough money to allocate $75,000 towards another project. So it's not like after we're saying that this budget's tight and we're putting kids at risk, we still had a significant amount of money left over.
75,000 in a year that some of the schools that we sent to were closed and we didn't use the busing for. I'm going to paint the picture.
8 years.
This is not a risk that I think you should be comfortable taking.
Carrie, also, I want to point out.
This is a risk. This is a big risk.
And I would
Corey,
make a
Mike,
motion.
and the current board were not the school board and the superintendent and the BA back in 2014.
Okay, but in 2019, 78%. 2020,
We also
81.
have a reserve account, correct?
There is a reserve
And
account,
we-
but
yeah.
that should be saved. I mean,
I agree. I'm just
it's a big
painting a
rainy
picture
day
for the
fund.
committee.
That's an
That's for
emergency.
We
the
have-
emergency move in.
It's a bottom line budget. We underspend significantly by hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual
It's not
basis.
true.
It is very true.
Hundreds.
How much?
hundreds-
Okay, so you
wait, no, Carrie, let me ask my question.
go ahead.
When was the last year we underspent by hundreds of thousands of dollars?
I will pull up the email that I received last year that did the annual end of fund balance. That was traditionally over $500,000.
You keep saying traditionally, but I haven't seen that kind of underspend.
That was
Aside from a pandemic year when we're not sending students to tuition schools.
I will be happy to resend you the email that we received from the business administrator. I believe it was from me. When I asked last
Is
year.
there still a process for special services to be returned to the taxpayer?
No.
That's been wiped, right?
Yes.
Well, that was a handshake agreement that we discussed.
It's
And we
It's a
didn't-
bottom line budget,
Mhm.
general fund. It incorporates all departments.
So-
Special services is
Exactly.
not separate.
So this is a reflection of the conversation that I had with you guys at the beginning of the season that said, if we're not doing that anymore, then this budget needs to be reviewed like any other budget. And so in reviewing it like any other budget, we traditionally underspend it. We're not returning it directly anymore. We're using it for other projects, good or bad, other projects. So if we're going to treat it like any other budget, then we need to treat it like any other budget.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question about one of the items, just to be able to understand the bottom line one? So, Dr. Jetty, the plan is on page 569 for out-of-district tuition. The plan that you, I believe, have is to go out to warrant article for, or even just put into the budget, a special ed teacher to help reduce that particular tuition cost, correct?
That's correct.
Is that going to a warrant article, or are you guys just doing that within the budget?
Those are
No, we-
positions in the budget.
Okay.
And
So-
that's in the personnel budget. There are 2 additional special ed teachers that are in there. And then that reduction that you see on 569 for out of district tuition is because we anticipate keeping a student in-house and not utilizing that. And again, it's cost effective when you look at the increase that's occurred just at 1 out of district placement this year.
So you're not expecting that the additional special ed teacher for CHS could offset either Lighthouse School or RSEC and ESY?
I believe
Easter seals is what,
Right, it was
I'm
Easter.
sorry.
seals.
I
Yeah,
can't
with
remember her
Devin.
name.
Yeah.
Devin, yep. She specifically said we will not see Easter seals in next year's budget.
Okay, but I thought part of what Devin's pitch is that this could reduce something in the neighborhood
in the
of
future, but I-
6 figures if we go ahead and invest the 95,000. But now I'm hearing that a 95,000 is only going to offset Easter seals, which is 59.5. Is that
And
correct?
she also said we're already not seeing $120,000 that would have been in this budget. It's not in this budget this year, and it won't be next year because of those 2 positions.
Okay.
So it's
So the 120 to offset the teacher is already taken out of the 385,418. So the 385,418 is after this teacher takes over a program.
But that teacher's in the personnel budget, right?
Correct.
Well, that's the 53 reduction that you see there, right? And then you've got the 59,534, which should be additional reduction a year from now.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
You know,
The way it was explained was a $95,000 investment in a teacher is going to offset a $120,000 program. I'm just not seeing it here.
Because it wasn't put into the budget. to
That was
begin
the
with.
way I understood what Ms. Stevens said. from the explanation that I heard her say is that she intentionally did not put that in the budget. In theory, this budget would be this line item would be $500,000.
Okay.
Is the way I understood it. So that
Even though I'm reducing 120,000, really, I'm only getting a line item of only a reduction of 53.
So it would have went up by more.
yes, that's the way I understood her explanation.
I think maybe it doesn't, I mean, would it make sense that it's a student who isn't already receiving those services? It's a projected cost, so it would have cost $120,000. But since we're adding that position, it's not
Yeah.
included. in
She
the
said it was
budget.
cost avoidance versus
I mean,
cost reduction.
right.
Yeah, that
I
cost
think is the
is
word
that
she used.
That's
Yeah.
right.
90% of that cost is down in personnel for that.
So really, I should consider that there's 8 students because there's only 7 in the table here. So really, there's an 8th student that would have been $120,000, but we're gonna take that student in house and offset it with the special ed teacher for 95. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's how I understood it.
That's how I understand.
I think that's the right interpretation.
Okay.
Just another point I would make is, I mean, if you look, so 3-year averaging with a special ed budget is a little bit tricky because you're dealing largely with tuition and you're dealing with here and nows
Students.
and specialized needs. So, Devon's already done a reduction of 62,185. So she's already reduced her overall bottom line from the current budget. So I worry about a $240,000 additional cut because going back to how many students and what specialized programming was needed in 2014 really doesn't impact 2022. She builds this budget on the current needs and who the students are who are here.
And I think we need to be cognizant of the long-term impact of the pandemic and the additional needs of students. I mean, we still don't know how that's going to pan out.
And if we had a handshake, if we still treated this the way we did in the past, I'd be like, I get it. The money, if we overspend, it comes back. But that's not the deal anymore. And so the deal is it gets reviewed like every other budget. And the 3-year average is 78.5%. The 5-year average is 78.36.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. What I'd like to do is call a vote, and we can take it from there.
Sounds good.
All right. Mr. Sun?
No.
Ms. Harrison?
No.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
I'm a no. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
No.
No.
Stevens? Mr. Barca?
No.
And Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, fails 3-6.
And I would propose a reduction to 10% of 120,000.
120,000.
Because that equivalent is an additional student buffer.
We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Any discussion on the 10% reduction?
Well, what was your rationale again, Carrie? I missed that.
Well, I believe 20% is appropriate. If I go to 10%, then you have 120,000 additional that I think you need, which covers an additional student, which is what we're saying. So to me, I feel like a 10% reduction has a sizable buffer already included. And it reflects the fact that we're not treating this like any other budget anymore. And it's being reviewed based on actuals versus budget. Because our budgeting methodology indicates that we are over budgeting this line.
Okay. Christina, is there a reason the board went away from the handshake agreement?
Here we go.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, when I was on the board for 6 years, we always had it. So I'm just curious. I don't know the history why we changed
I
it.
think it stemmed from the fact that nobody on that board and nobody, I
On
don't
this
know
board.
if Carrie or Andrew were part of that handshake agreement. We just
Yeah.
didn't know why it was made, how it had evolved over the years, what the original intent was. So I would propose that we put it in writing. If we're going to have an agreement, it should be put it in writing, and we'll abide by that policy. But the budget committee seemed to not want to go that route.
Yeah, we had talked about that earlier in the year.
But
I
why
felt
wouldn't we
it was
wanna
more-
Put it in writing.
What?
If we put it in writing, won't that get what everybody wants?
Right. My point was it should be something that's transparent so that when the voters look at the budget and say, oh, okay, this is the special ed budget, But if it's not spent, it'll get returned to the taxpayers. It's, for the most part, it was a lack of understanding of why and an attempt to be very clear and transparent and just be more obvious about it rather than a 20-year-old agreement that nobody really knew why.
And we had asked, it would be nice early in the budget cycle to review those and re-agree on them. I mean, why not have an annual re-agreement? So that's what the board has just said. Instead of trying to remember all these past deals that literally nobody at the table was involved in, didn't make much sense. So we had requested to renew them in writing and annually review them.
I'm just from my background, and I've been a governmental auditor, I've been a governmental accountant 15, 16 years now. If you run into a situation where there is a deficit in the general and the rest of the departments, I can't guarantee I'm going to return what the underspend is.
Yeah,
in
no, I
special
understand
ed.
that
So
part,
it's I focus it mainly on it's a bottom line budget. I believe that we manage our budgets very responsibly between the board and my office. So, and we have had returns. Tax rate went down 2 cents this year. We have had returns that have helped to stabilize the tax rate over the past couple of years coming from the school side. So I think what we're doing is very responsible and very respectful to the taxpayers. Some may not agree with that, but this is the way I was taught, and this is the way that I do things as the business administrator. So that's my 2 cents on that.
All right.
I'll just one comment real quick. I'll just say, you know what? There's a safety net fund in case we're wrong. So unlike many others, I actually prefer no handshake agreement, and let's just treat this like any other budget.
And just if I may, just to point out how this budget is a little bit different. When you're dealing with things, textbooks, supplies, etc., 3-year averaging, you can utilize that. When you're dealing with people, students, programmatic needs, it is a little bit different. Devon's already done a $62,000 cut based on her student need projections. So, now we're reducing this line by $180,000, and it's just
20.
it's a high number.
Minus 62. She's already done minus 62.
Right. So the overall budget from last year, which it's just, that's a big cut. Just saying that when you're talking about individual student needs.
I appreciate that. And we've had bigger cuts in these budgets. So I appreciate how stunning and shocking it could be. And I appreciate her methodology. But when we do school enrollment projections, there's an algorithm based on what we know and what we think this is the number. This is an algorithm. It's based on what she knows. The closest her number has come is 81%. So 10% reduction is still 9% more than we've come to the budget that was developed. So there's still a buffer in there. If they were wrong by a little bit, we'd have to be way wrong to be that much higher than the 3-year, 5-year, and 8-year average of our methodology.
I think the other piece you got to take into account as well is that we have the IDEA special ed grant, and you don't always know what that allocation is going to be from year to year. So there may be things in that budget, in that grant, that maybe we thought was going to be general fund operationally, but we have this money and we can use the grant for that. The allocations change year to year. Some of the changes coming from federal and state haven't been favorable to grants.
Right.
In that way, our allocations go down, and then something that you've had in the grant, now you've got to transition it into your budget because you need to continue that service. So there's many, many variables when it comes to special ed. To me, it's a budget that I strive not to touch, regardless of what she spends on it. I don't like to touch her budget because we don't know. And I've seen the uncertainty through my experience. Districts can get crushed.
All right. In the interest of time, I'd like to call the vote.
Well, I agree that this probably shouldn't be cut, but I don't understand why. Is the school board not willing to write this agreement? Is the budget committee just not going to agree to it because of the fact that it's written down?
I think it's worth revisiting once we get through the process again, right? Certainly, as we talked about our bylaw reviews, this is a key thing to include in that type of session, right? Where we're reviewing it annually.
I thought when we were talking about the bylaws, we said we were going to talk about it later, like now. So if we're not going to talk about it now, and we're not going to talk about it at the bylaws, when do we talk about it?
The committee, it's the will of the committee, right? We're at the point now where we have a motion and a vote. And if the committee would like to review handshake agreements as a part of this,
I would want to make sure that it's specific only to this, because my concern, honestly, is with a handshake agreement is somebody will say, well, we discussed 2, but this thing we forgot to discuss, and now we can't discuss it. If it's a matter of, listen, we don't touch this budget at all, with the understanding that everything that is unspent gets returned to the taxpayer, then you have my blessing. But I also think it's overfunded by $240,000. And so if that is overfunded by, if I'm even close, that's a lot of money that we overtaxed my neighbors. So if I know that this 240 or whatever is overspent is completely segregated from the initial 200,000 that we strive for, then yes, I'll withdraw my motion.
I just explained, I can't guarantee
they're
that.
not going to do that.
I
So
can't.
But it's been done.
I can't.
You can't, but the school board can direct you to. So that's a conversation that could be
If
had.
I have a deficit in the other departments, where do you think that money's coming from?
There is nothing.
I'm waiting.
You just said that you strive to not touch her budget at all.
Yeah.
So maybe
I
you
do.
need to hit. To
But if
spend
there's
her
a
budget.
deficit in the
All right.
other departments in the school, the money comes from the special services because it's part of the general fund.
All right,
Carrie.
let's cool the temperature. We have a motion, excuse me, we have a motion and a second. I'm going to call the vote, right? And if the committee would like to talk about handshake agreements, certainly there's time at the end of this evening and member input. We'll be glad to do that, right? If you want to pick up that conversation, time permitting, coming up close on that. But certainly we can have that conversation once again.
I'm fine with my current reduction.
All right. Mr. Sun.
No.
Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I'm a no. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Stevens.
No.
Mr. Barca.
No.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Motion fails 4-5. All right.
Highlight it for next year when we come in under 80%.
Any other motions on special services? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to shift gears into food service. Any motions? So food service, I'm sorry, had a bottom line of 239, 211. Hearing, seeing none. All right. We'll shift gears into facilities, please. Facilities has a bottom line of $1,044,241.
I have a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Taylor, please.
Page 5, line number 623, bottled gas reduced based on 21 actual removal of tank associated with LMS portables. I want to move that from 1,500 and cut that to 0.
Second.
Reduction of $1,500. Okay.
Where are we?
Which page?
That would be page 5,
It's the top of page 5.
line 623, utility bottled gas.
So the portables is the only thing they use that?
Yeah, I completely, that makes sense.
I think we talked about that during.
I
our
think
last
I
session.
initially left it in there because I thought that the kitchen used it, but the kitchen's all electric. So there is no propane at the middle school.
The one thing just to point out, so remember that the municipal lease for the energy work being done at the middle school, it's going to be a warrant article, right? But that's going to take all the existing energy costs and redirect that back toward the municipal lease. So this is just $1,500 less. It might extend the long-term debt because you would have that much less to pay. But we can still cut.
That's
because
fine.
it's
I
not
just
in
look at
there.
it that there is no reason for it.
Was that your motion?
Take it out of the budget, yes.
Yeah.
Take it out because it doesn't exist.
It-
Understand that you may use that 1,500, but that's also based on you may and the voters might. So
Right.
Clear as day, it's not being used, cut it.
All right. Any other debate on this one? Mr. Sun. Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Yes.
Stevens. Mr. Barca.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
A unanimous pass, 900.
Do I get a gold star for that one?
Yes. All right. Any other motions on facilities, please?
I do have one on page 9. LMS non-instruct equipment, line 430, repairs and maintenance. Looking to reduce that from $6,000 down to $2,000.
-4. Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. I will second.
Wait, I don't see one for 6,000. I see
Well,
one
so,
for-
okay, let me
So-
rephrase that. 9,000 down to 7, based on the line item for repairs for HVAC that fall outside of the contract, reducing that
Oh,
from
I
6
see.
to 4.
I got you. Okay. That makes more sense to me.
So the motion's for a reduction of 4,000.
Yes,
Two.
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Which line are we on? I'm
So-
sorry.
Yeah, I've lost
430, repairs and maintenance.
Yep.
But I think you said from 9,000 to 7,000 wouldn't.
Sorry,
be
so-
9 to 5, right?
Yes, thank you.
And I'm sorry, what was the reasoning again?
Well, hold on, I need a second.
Oh,
for
second. I'll second.
Brand new system, most of it's covered under warranty, and I think if you take a look at some of the other schools, they're up higher. I think if I remember, CHS is like $7,000. So on a brand new system that's a year old, most should be covered under a warranty. I think 6 is just excessive for budgeting for repairs out of warranty.
Okay. Any other discussion?
This is for LMS?
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that a brand new system? I didn't.
Well,
I
By
thought
that
that's what
point,
you
I would
use
hope it
the
is.
Would be at
the
that
special
point.
ed funding for getting the system repaired and up to
Oh,
speed.
okay. So this is part of the upgrades that we just did with the ESSER funds. That system.
We're
So-
still working on it. It's
Right.
still in progress, but by the
Okay.
time this budget goes into effect,
All right. I'm
Right.
just a year behind.
Yep, that's
Thank you.
All right. We'll move forward
Did
with
you
the
have a
vote.
budget?
Mr. Sun. Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Passes 8-1.
I couldn't go 2 for 2.
That wasn't unanimous.
Sorry, I'm back to my notes.
Lost my fastball.
Any other motions on facilities? Other committee members? All right. So we have a new bottom line on facilities of $1,038,741. Sound right, Corey?
yeah, Excel doesn't let you just put a minus sign. You got to put the plus ahead of it.
Right,
Hold on.
exactly.
Yeah, we're right.
All right, shifting gears into business services. There's a bottom line of 54,964.
I have a motion.
Mr. Taylor.
Page 2, line 610 supplies, reduce that budget line item by $1,699.
Motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Go ahead.
What was this for? Was this just masks and stuff for the district? Is that what that is?
It is.
Oh yeah, it's emergency management stuff. So if we need masks or we need supplies from the district, I can use that to go through that.
So my thought is, you know what, we put it into the 2020 budget, knowing that there was need. I can't believe that we would need that full amount, if at all, going into 2022.
I think I
2023.
may have expended it this year, but
Other than
Double
masks,
check.
what is that primarily used for? Do you know?
It's purchase of masks, cleaning
supplies,
products if we need it, just stuff that,
Sanitizers.
yeah, but I have it separated out into the 3 schools, so they have budgets as well. And there are times that if they're running low at the school level with something, I supplement from mine. It just gives me some cushion there.
Would that, not from the school, but would that come from like emergency management at the town level? Is that something that we have an emergency management budget?
We do.
Why would we not reach out to them if in the off chance we need this? We have a budget for this kind of stuff.
We actually receive a lot of stuff from Homeland Security, emergency management at the state level. At the time we budgeted these items, we didn't realize that we were going to have.
Well, there's
much
that, but
access to
at the
those
town
things.
level, we also have that access.
There's a whole lot of sanitizer at the dump still too, isn't there?
I'm just saying.
Huh?
Help yourself.
We got a whole lot too. So there's a tarp behind the high school.
Enjoy it because I remember the panic. Like, we can't open school. We don't have sanitizer. Now you're swimming in it. So.
The day that I walked out to the loading dock and there was a 53-foot Walmart truck pulling in. He opens the thing. I'm like, oh, how much is ours? He's like, you get the whole. I'm like,
What am I gonna do with that?
And the sad part is there are companies that got clobbered by unexpected tax bills because now they're characterized differently because they did it. So
All right, so 610
Okay.
supplies, motion and a second for a reduction of 1,699.
Potentially have ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 funds that you could leverage for that if like in an emergency type situation.
in an emergency, a lot of those, a high percentage of those funds are going to go towards the finishing off.
HVAC, right.
And education guys.
Yep. Yeah, we have a 20%
20%.
set aside in ESSER 3.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Whoops.
Uh-oh. Mr. Leary.
No.
Okay, I'm a yes. Dennis?
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, and Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Passes 8-1.
How much was that?
1,699.
And what was the vote again, Andrew?
8-1. All right, any other motions on business services this evening? We have a new bottom line of 53,265. All right, shifting into transportation. Transportation has a bottom line of $609,282. Any motions from the committee this evening?
It's a contract, right?
It
Yeah,
is.
that's the only increase in it is the 3% year to year.
So we still have to pay that 3%, and then it's fuel credits
Yes.
that we're getting back, right? Okay.
We budget for the 3% and then we'll see how things pan out along the way. But wait, we'll be up for I think it ends in 24.
That's what I had that you looked
So
up
then,
before,
yeah,
Corey. Is
so
the
then we'll be
contract comes up to
renegotiating and-
2024.
Going out to bid.
All right, moving into SAU. Bottom line of $26,912. Any motions on SAU? Hearing none, we'll shift into school board, please. School board has a bottom line of $87,740.
And I'll note the major increase in that one is the audit fees for the federal compliance audit.
Any motions on school board? All right, human services, $9,301. Any motions?
I haven't had a chance to analyze it with the enrollment data, so I don't currently have any motions.
And next up is salary and benefits.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's where I don't have any motions. HR, personnel.
salary and benefits is $18,334,158 and 1 cent. That's good. Any motions on salary and benefits this evening?
I do, if you could just give me 1 minute,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Page 32. District-wide, improve instruction, 110 salaries. Looking to cut that line item by $2,500.
A motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry, which line again?
It's line 110 salaries.
There's 2 on that page.
It's specifically DW, district-wide improve instruction is the 110 that I'm speaking.
That's
of.
$2,500, you said?
Reduce that 106 by $2,500.
Can you do that?
Um,
I seconded it.
that's
for
her
discussion.
actual salary. You can't reduce that.
Which one is it though? Is it
Well,
Mary's.
you're
All
cutting?
You can reduce the bottom
Oh
line.
yeah, if you want, I can just reduce the bottom line by the ones that I've calculated.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, you're talking about the curriculum director salary.
That is correct.
That's her actual salary for this year. So she's gonna make at least that.
Okay.
So
Well,
cutting
again, so
money out of the-
in
cutting
my
money out
mind,
of
you know what? I'll take all of these, put it at the end, bottom line budget, and you know what? I think a 5.47% increase year over year is more. So I was cutting it to bring it in line with 3%. So I'll just go through. If you can just give me a minute to
Sure.
add up the
Yes, please.
ones that I have.
Yeah, I think if you're going based on that, I would probably make your reduction to the salary pool.
Oh, I did
That's
that
where-
too.
So
Well, that's where the raises come from.
just
Well,
actually,
but I mean, then the line item, and then you also have money budgeted in the pool.
So the pool is for next year's raises.
Pool's for next year.
Right.
So when it comes across in here,
Okay,
because when we do the salary pool and allocate the raises,
that's fine.
superintendent's discretion, that money is in a single account, bottom line.
Right.
But it doesn't get allocated into the budget lines when the raises take place, which we could do.
Right. So
And I actually have that. I have that on a spreadsheet.
moving forward, I will just do it as a bottom line.
Yep.
And basically, my philosophy is that, you know what? Any one person should get the same as the rest of the folks within the district, and that's typically a 3% raise. So
Just- I think-
that's fine.
I think we discussed it last year too. So that anything you see the administrator salaries for the 23 budget, that's their actual salary in 22.
so
Right, then-
Scott, just on this one,
Yep.
just to illustrate the point, if we look at FY21 actual, Mary's salary was $104,734, right? Because that's the actual. And then the recommended for next year is the 106, right? So I'm not sure when you said 5%.
I'm going from budget to budget. So the budget jumped from 100,500. So you budgeted
But that,
100,500, and then you actually did an actual of 104,734. So you went over budget on that. Well, I mean, technically you had 102 for 2021 budget. 2021 actual was 104. So you overspent on that line item.
because
This is tricky because you're getting into personnel,
tricky.
individual people.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the 105, which is less than what she made the year before, because the salary increase was in the other pool. That's where it's like follow the bouncing money.
Mhm.
And so the thing I'm asking you to compare is 104.7 to 106.
Sure.
That's not a 5% raise.
What's
Right.
the base salary?
But
for
the,
that?
yeah, I'm just looking at as far as the
Salary.
increase in budget, again,
Currently.
Without
I'm
any
perfectly
extras,
fine with
what was the base salary?
ending this discussion
That's it.
based on the personal nature of it. Just give me a minute to tally up my numbers and I'll go from
Was
there.
it
But
base salary?
I'm hoping when you tally that you're tallying off the actual raises, not assuming a huge percentage isn't there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, so again, I just look at this in terms of, you know what, year over year budget,
Mhm.
the budget increase, how
Mhm.
much you spent, doesn't matter to me. Bottom line budget, you guys can spend whatever you want. But when I take a look at the budget line item, that budget line item went up by almost 5.5%. So I think,
What
I
I'd
think
like
it
to
should be
do,
free.
what I would like to request is that we stop with the individual lines.
Yep.
Now, right, and that if there were any reductions to salary and benefits, we aggregate them and do a bottom line cut on the entire budget.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
It's yeah. Easiest way to do it.
While
If there's any other,
that is being calculated, yeah, are there any other motions by other committee members on salary and benefits?
I would just piggyback on Mr. Taylor's comments, and at the town level, the maximum that anyone can get is 3%. All department heads and number twos are on a 2% annual increase. So yeah, when I see 5 or 6 or 7%.
But Bob, it's not 5%. That's the point that I'm trying to make. If you look at it, she made 104 and she's up to 106. That is not 5%.
Well, where it says $100,500 and then it goes to 106.
But that's the budget amount,
exactly
not the actual amount. So
you gotta
you
go-
have to compare
you'd have to
actual
compare-
to
the extra
actual.
money being added in.
You have to compare
It's in
actual to
it's in
actual.
the salary pool, the bottom line.
Where's that salary?
They apply the salary.
salary pool is on page,
Oh, I see. It's a 110 on page 44.
Just for order of practice, could I have you remove your second and remove your motion?
Sure.
remove my.
79.
It's this one here.
Yeah.
Page 44, right? Is that what you're looking at?
It's almost 4%.
Right. So,
But can I go to food service where 2019 was 50,000, 2020 was 55,000, and now in 2023 it's 59,000. So over the course of 3 years, that's $10,000, almost $10,000 in 3 years. That's quite a jump.
so I lost you. I don't know where you went.
I'm on page 46.
Yep.
Food service director.
Yep.
2019 was 50,000. The following year was 55,000, which is a 10% raise.
Right.
So you can't say that it's not a 10%, it's not a 5%. There are raises in here that are very excessive.
There are
This
raises
is a
in there
department
that
head.
they are
Again.
reflective of the market for those positions
This
in the
is the
state of
conversation
New
at the
Hampshire.
start of the meeting, right?
But Corey, at the town level, we're not losing people due to this reason.
School districts do.
Oh,
Look, we just lost. We're losing some important members of our admin team
We-
because of this
we-
type of stuff.
We met with the police chief and I think he talked about vacancies in the police department. So you have
It's got one
lost,
overseas, yep.
but you have
We had
lost
one that-
people.
One was of another reason entirely, but not due to money. We've not lost anybody due to money.
Mr. Chairman, can I make my?
Yes, so in the interest of time, we have about
Change
10
motion.
minutes remaining, so.
I'd like to make a motion to reduce the overall district general fund by $48,715.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor, a second by Ms. Douglas. Motion on the
Not
table
to go
is,
into details, but as I go through and take a look at the budget differences between 2022, 2023, levels it at a 3% increase in budget,
What was the amount against?
48.
48,715.
further discussion.
Well, for me, it's a bottom line budget, so they'll find if there are underspends elsewhere, it can fund it. If there's overages, those will be funded somehow. It just reality is at this point, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. They'll spend it, they'll reallocate it anyway. So
And then if I can just,
we'll vote on
okay,
this one.
so this particular one, and then I do have what I
48,000.
think might be a mathematical error that I'll do separate.
Yours or theirs?
No, on a different one. So
Okay.
so good.
All right, ready to call the vote on this one?
I have a quick question. So I'm looking at actual. So 2021 actuals total was 16.9 million. And we're going up to 18.3. Is that step change? I mean, obviously this is everybody. It's not raises.
Well, there's no
Step
yeah,
changes.
there's no
It's
contract.
Current staffing levels. It's who is currently with the district at this time.
Yeah.
You don't have the luxury. A lot of times when you lose teachers in certain positions, you can fill that with a lower tier teacher.
Sometimes you
We're
can.
not experiencing
Yeah.
that at this time.
Okay.
So this is based on who is under contract.
Under contract right now. Okay.
And 3% of that FY19 is $500,000, just from a step perspective.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah,
that 180.
there is no step on it because the CBA is on the line.
Yeah, yeah. So most of that 183,000 increase is the 2 new positions, and then
Percentage
percentages
increases.
basically for the non-union.
Well, it could also be, changes in which ladder they're on and change from single to family health insurance, changes in there.
Yeah.
But it is important to recognize that it doesn't include an agreement at all. So,
Yeah.
so whatever, we have a very small increase, but we have other increases we're going to try to tack onto it. So you have to factor the big picture.
All right. Motion second. We'll call the vote. Mr. Sun.
No.
Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I'm a no. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
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 No.
Stevens is a no. Mr. Barca.
No.
No. And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Okay, that fails 4-5.
And then I had one other motion, and Corey, you can double check my math for me. This ends up coming up on page 42. CHS custodial services, 110 salaries. If I add up what's in the table, I'm coming up with $192,543, but yet the budgeted line item is 220.
Page 42.
Yeah.
That's why I hate not having my mouse. Shot the damn thing.
Filled the spot.
What are you getting as a
For the total of the salaries in that table, I come to 192,543 and 36 cents.
Total incorrectly, if that's the, let me do it quick.
I get the same as Mr. Taylor.
Okay. So with that being the case, my motion would be to reduce that line item by the difference, which is $36,157.64.
Second.
Never seen that happen.
Good catch.
Not missing a position in that.
Yeah, that's what I
are
was
you?
going to say. Is there a missing position, or those salaries are correct, right?
We have to double check it because, so like Dave and Joe,
They're
the
split
facility
across the
director,
three.
they're split across. So I think we need to double check. And I'm also looking at one day person and then 1, 2, 3.
And one night person on there. There are 3 people at night.
Yeah, something's off with this. So if we can get back to you on this one, it'd be
Oh,
helpful.
you know what? The 4th position isn't in here.
There's a position missing.
There's a position missing. We got to go back. We got to go
So-
back and look at it
Withdrawn.
I'm willing to withdraw.
because there's supposed to be 4
Yes,
nighttime, and there's only 3 on here.
which I think it's just not in the table, but it's
Yeah.
in the number. But we'll question 20. It's going down.
Nice catch, Mr. Taylor.
All right. Anything else on salary and benefits this
Did
evening?
you add them all up?
I use fingers, toes, everything.
All right, then we have the food service, which is 363,427.
We did food service.
We did that.
This is food service. It was a part of the salary and
This is
benefits
salaries
line.
and
Yeah, it's at the
benefits.
bottom.
Oh,
But that was, yeah, that was the explanation given earlier tonight.
Should I assume that the jump from the 55,043 to 67 for the most part is an additional vacant position? So that's a sizable jump going from 55 to 67.7. $12,730 increase.
What line are you on?
That would be on page 47, CHS Food Service Operations, line 110,
Oh,
salaries.
Got it.
Is that the raises?
What page you on?
47.
47.
So this grid and this jump. Oh, what'd you do? That
Oh.
jump.
This one here?
No, this one. The food service high school. So 55 to 67.
It might just be the raises because the
that'd
raises
be-
were how much?
Based on that.
So again, trying to avoid the whole personnel issue. My question is very simple. Is the 12,730 increase on that particular line item based on the vacant position? Is that being added there, or is it for another reason?
It was due to the increase.
The 19.5% increase we talked about.
It was due to the
beginning.
increases
So
we
that's what it is.
discussed at the
Okay.
beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, 'cause that's almost exactly 19.5%.
All right. With that and the motions made this evening, I have a reduction of 14,257. And out of the budget, I have 22,979,197.
Let me see that number.
22,979,197. I have 4 points that we've withdrawn this evening that we will pick up again next week. And just to recap, under CHS supplies, there was a withdrawal for $600 on supplies for AP Science that the SAU was going to research. Voc Ed, 5,940 was withdrawn. I also have a withdrawal on GMS 640 for math by $999, as well as the custodial services that we've just discussed a moment ago.
So, Mr. Chair, if those 4 items are our only outstanding items, do we want to meet next week just for those 4 items or table those until our next meeting?
Well, I think there's some other conversations that this committee should have, including handshake agreements,
Okay.
right? That we're certainly not going to have time for this evening in 2 minutes remaining. That I do think it's worthwhile to have a meeting next week to wrap up this budget and to talk about other matters amongst the committee.
So one other thing, Mr. Chairman. So next week I'll be on a plane during this particular time. So 3 of the holds are mine. At that point, is it worth even looking into? If I'm not going to be here to make the motion.
I think it is because we're not voting on the entire bottom line of the budget right now.
Okay.
Right. So I do think it's worth it. And then we can pick it up in January when we vote the bottom line before the budget hearing.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep.
So just by order here, I know we had town businesses this evening. Moving it next on the agenda. Is there anything to cover off on the town side?
Not particularly.
No? Okay.
Nothing else going on.
On December 16th, so in 2 weeks from now, we have a joint session for town and school warrant review articles. I just want to make sure that the town and the school are going to be ready for that meeting.
On December
16th.
So the board will meet on the 15th and we'll have draft. We've already reviewed the drafty warrant. So it's sort of the framework and outline. A lot's going to happen between now and then that will allow us to solidify that. So I
So
would.
we are meeting next week on the 9th.
We are going to meet next week on the 9th, on the 16th, and that's just to wrap up this budget to start. Then we'll talk about other matters. And then on December 16th is when we're going to review town and school warrant articles together in one session. We're going to be ready for that, sounds like?
But the union, the contract will be settled by then?
A lot has happened. So
Well, that's a warrant article, so just will we be able to review it?
I hope so. There's still a lot to happen. A lot has happened. So I'm not trying to be cagey. It's just we will have a warrant article that is accurate to that date. You're not voting that night, right?
We're
That's
voting on January 6th, but there's no meeting in between.
correct. So we will have it as tight as we can get it at that point, and we may, it's just going to depend. So we may have to update again on the 6th, but at least you'll know what the warrant article looks like. And if you watched last night's board meeting or check the file, the link is in there to the drafty version, so you can see where we're headed.
Excellent. Yeah, January 6th is the scheduled voting date, and then our budget hearing will be on Thursday, January 13th. That's what we're tracking towards. Okay. All right, next up on the agenda, just circulating back as member input.
I did email to both you and Ms. Harrison, the email that was sent with fund balances going back to 2015. They're sizable.
Thank you.
And the majority of which did go back to offset taxes up until a certain point. And so just to close the loop on that I actually did do that. So I said I would, and I did. And
All right.
then you can distribute it if you like.
I will. Thank you very much. Any other member input this evening? Second round of public input as promised at the start. I see nobody coming in. We'll close public input and then we'll move into adjournment.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Barca? Mr. Hayes? We are adjourned
Yes.
9:00. We will pick it up again next week on December 9th.
Andrew, what'd you have for a total reduction?